Wednesday Club! Yay! It's always so fun to watch the intro.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we have a show. We have our own show. Look at it. Hi, everybody.
Wednesday Club and friends today.
And friend.
Friend.
I guess we're all friends, and it's the Wednesday Club, and you're our friend. I'm trying to say that.
It's the Wednesday Clubs.
It's the Wednesday Club and friends.
Merciless friends.
Yeah, well,
Anyway,
that's
so-
the best kind of friend.
Yeah. All right, so I'm Matt Key. I'm behind the counter today. We're talking comics and events. But before we get into all of that, who else do we have on the Wednesday Club today?
I'm Taliesin Jaffe. You can find me at Executive Goth pretty much everywhere, and we're talking comics.
I'm Amy Dallen. I'm often here and generally talking comics, whether that's supposed to be what we're doing or not.
And you also work at a comic book shop,
And
which
I
is
do.
super amazing.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And with us today is Damien Poitier! Poitier!
Damien Poitier. You can find me everywhere at Damien Poitier. If you can spell it.
You're not going to tell anybody how to spell it?
No, figure it out.
Thank you so much for being
You
here.
really-
Yeah,
And this
thank
is
you for
the thing
having
that
me.
we should start doing with our guests, because I realized because I knew our previous guests, it didn't occur to me, but like at some point I'd love to just be like, what's your comic book backstory?
Ooh,
Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
no, actually.
Comic
Yeah.
backstory.
Do it. Tell us.
Okay. Well, I learned to read at a very young age. I was probably like 4 or 5. Actually, I really was an early reader because my grandmother was a librarian, and like I started reading, and then I kind of like got out of it. And my father was like, "No, we want to encourage this," so he started bringing me comic books. So I think
That's
I got
awesome.
my first comic when I was 6 or 7.
You don't remember what it
And
was, do you?
then I do remember seeing Blue Devil.
Nice.
I do remember seeing Hulk.
Do you remember which Hulk was it?
No, I don't know which, but
Was it the Rocket Raccoon Hulk?
No.
They're always so hopeful.
And it was I do remember seeing Spider-Man, of course, because
Yeah,
you know, and
Spider-Man.
But my dad was
Ubiquitous.
my dad's a Marvel guy, so he introduced me to Marvel, and then
So he's a good dad.
yeah.
I'm just kidding, DC dads. You're also good dads.
Yeah, you
DC
guys
dads
are
out
awesome
there, man.
too. And then you know we moved from Philadelphia, where I was born, to Massachusetts, and he knew some guys there that had a comic shop, and then that started my Wednesday obsession, and I was there every Wednesday if I was walking or riding my bike or whatever when I was young, and then as they moved, you know, I graduated to driving and things like that, but I've pretty much been in the comic shop every Wednesday that I'm not working.
You just track your life
Sense.
phases in
Through
like the
the
way you
comic
get
book
to the
shop,
comic
right.
book shop. That's amazing.
And I've made some really good friends and, you know, of fellow enthusiasts and creators. And
Oh,
all
you
other
meant
things.
we're the enthusiasts. Okay, now I get why you did that. I'm just kidding.
Do you still?
Yeah. So,
And you shouted out comics on your Signal Boost, yeah?
yeah, oh yeah. I shouted out Gold Digger, and which was written and drawn by Fred Perry. Still written and drawn by
And
Fred
Antarctic Press, if I
Perry.
back in the day.
Yes. And I shouted out Savage Dragon.
Nice.
Eric Larson, which both those are still
The
on.
happiest, shiniest of the original image books. The image books that would not quit.
Yeah.
We had the image episode
Nice.
3 or 4
Couple
weeks
weeks
ago.
ago,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it was like
Eric's,
Eric.
It was one of those like where over time, like the book has always been the book, but like in a meta narrative sense, that Savage Dragon is such an achievement now, where it's just like that dude just wanted to make comics, just forever, just actually
he's
make them,
doing it.
like, and it's
He's
so
just
good.
doing it. It's amazing. Yeah.
He's like, you know what? I want to make comics, and I'm going to make comics, and he's still making comics.
Yeah.
Yep.
Living the dream. Living the dream.
That's for Eric Larson.
Do you still shop? Is your original store still around? Do you still or the people who run it?
In
Massachusetts?
Yes,
Yeah.
Bedrock Comics. It's called Bedrock Comics. It's now in Framingham. Actually, it was always in Framingham, but it's in Framingham, which just became a city. Shout out to Framingham, the city.
Congratulations, Framingham.
Yeah, congratulations. But it's on Route 9, and it's still run. Well, Jim's still there, and Jim and Jack are my comic
Jim
book
Jack?
guys.
That's
Because originally Jim owned the store, but then he sold the store to Jack. But then Jim started working at Jack's store, and they do actually the Boston Con. They run that. That's their con.
oh no,
Oh,
kidding.
I've heard
nice.
great
That's
stuff about
cool.
that
Yeah.
show.
They haven't had me out there yet.
Jim and Jack,
They've actually
get
asked
on
me
it.
to come out.
Jack.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, so Bedrock Comics in Framingham, Massachusetts is my original that I recall from childhood comic store. Jim and Jack, tell them I sent you over there if you're in Framingham or in the surrounding area to go to say hello.
So you went from loving comic books as a kid to deciding that you wanted to be built like a comic book hero and be an action star like a comic book hero and become a comic book hero.
Pretty much it.
Yeah. I wish that I
You're
had
the
that
Eric
motivation.
Larson of just be a superhero. You're like, I'm gonna do it.
Well,
And-
I haven't actually portrayed a superhero as a
No, not a
so
hero.
I'm
yet.
still
You've portrayed the most powerful of supervillains, though. So
Well, it depends on your power rating and scale, because I mean, is Thanos
Fair
as
enough.
powerful as Darkseid? You know, and then, different people. Wait, does he have the gauntlet? Does he not have the gauntlet? You know,
He's got the gauntlet.
If he's got the gauntlet, yeah, obviously.
if he
But
can get the
doesn't-
gauntlet, then he has the gauntlet.
I'll say.
That's the plot of every major, like, if he can get the gauntlet part is a
Yeah.
big deal.
I'll say.
Yay!
we have streams.
As much as I like Darkseid or Seed, however you want to pronounce it, and depending on how they write it,
Darkseid.
I gotta say I love that. They do that EI thing occasionally. It just drives me
Darkseid.
nuts. I love that Thanos, when he retires, goes like home to a farm and just farms when he's
Yeah,
chilling.
yeah,
Like,
I do love
he
that.
He has his little like a little country home. He's like,
Yeah,
no,
that's where Infinity War
Taking some
starts,
time off.
right?
Yeah,
My
yeah,
favorite
there's a
story about Darkseid is that apparently for years, if you came up to Kirby and you were like, I really love Darkseid, or you were like, I really love Darkseid, he
would
wouldn't
correct
correct
you.
you.
Oh, okay.
He wouldn't correct you. He would just let you say it however, but that resulted in terrible arguments where people would be like, no, I know my way is right. I
Because
said
I
it
said
to
to
Kirby.
Kirby.
Like,
I thought you were going to say that he corrects you either way, because that would have been
That would be amazing.
that would have been even more Kirby, actually.
troll
Like
Kirby.
Darkseid. Darkseid. Darkseid.
What's wrong with you?
Yep.
Kate?
Wait, I was here a year ago when you said Darkseid was Darkseid.
I have no memory of that.
Darkseid.
Yeah.
Darkseid.
I spent a
Darkseid.
decade. I spent a decade saying submariner, so I can't really.
I love that though.
That's a complete mispronunciation of Darkseid.
And I also used
Yeah,
to
it
say,
is.
I used to call Sentinels Centennials because I didn't. I was like, yeah.
But I've always heard, and I saw, actually I read this somewhere, I didn't hear it because that would be not true. I read that anyone
your
who
commitment to accuracy.
pronounces words because they read them, that's actually really
Oh,
like,
it's-
so much cooler than, just the
That's an
alternative.
excellent
I own it.
excuse to
I own
not
it.
say
Because,
words
but I'm saying,
correctly.
because you didn't, you read it, you learned it through reading,
Yeah.
and you just never spoke it. So that's actually kind of awesome that you would
See, you
mispronounce
just
a
said
word.
Thanos, and I was like, I say Thanos. Am I wrong?
I
It's because
say
we both grew up
technically-
reading it, so we made up our own version, right?
May I throw this out? I used to pronounce it Thanos, and then when I was in seminary and started taking Greek, I learned that Thanos comes from the Greek word thanatos, which means
Thanatosis.
death. So then I changed my pronunciation of Thanos to
Thanos. Okay.
because it comes from Thanatos.
That is.
But it's its own thing. But it's its own thing, so you could technically still pronounce
You
it.
could, but I say
You
Thanos.
can drop the living language ball. Living language.
Living language. What?
All
I
right.
think Fickle Fandoms is from your hood. They said perhaps I should go buy my first physical comic books ever from Damien's very own comic book store. She
Yeah.
said,
Definitely should.
easily
You
drive
definitely
there.
should.
Yes, do it.
Definitely should.
Do that. You should do that. Tell him I sent you too.
What would your first comic be? That's
What are you gonna?
No, I'm
Said
asking.
first
I'm asking-
physical, so there must be
First
like
physical.
just pick up a nice collection of something you're already
What
reading.
would you want to
digital.
pick up?
Yeah, tell us what
Yeah,
you're going to
see-
pick up.
see
We
if
want
you
to
put us in
know.
the
We
chat.
want to know. Tell us.
We want to know.
Yeah.
We're asking the question because
If you don't tell us, Damien's going to tell you what to go get, and you have to go get
It's
it.
gonna be really
Yeah.
expensive.
It's going to be an omnibus.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be a
Hall
Kirby
comic.
omnibus. Welcome to comics.
Well, they said physical comics, so I think they're already.
So I think
in
they're
the
reading
comics.
something, but
Yeah.
Fickle
all
Fandoms says,
right.
"Oh man, now I'm on the spot." Yeah, you are.
Yeah, you are. Welcome to it.
We're just
really.
gonna wait. We're just gonna pause the show until you figure it out. No pressure. Hurry up. A lot of show to do.
All right. Unpause.
for
Let's
it.
get
So what are we
into
doing
it.
today? Yeah.
Yeah.
We are talking. We said this in the Facebook Live, but we are talking today. Well, first of all, can win on the board again.
Bam!
Yay! We got Wolverine. We got Captain America. That is a classic team up,
Yep.
Fighting together.
fighting together.
Perfect harmony.
That's great. All right. Thank you, Ken Win, the best. Did you just like? Oh.
I did touch it. I
You
mean,
got a
touched
moment of
it.
it.
And thanks for letting us know the comics that you're buying. Keep that coming. Like we love knowing
love
that
it.
you're getting our recommendations and give us recommendations
right.
because
We do like recommendations.
Update Fickle Fandoms will probably go for either Rat Queens or Saga. Fantastic.
Good stuff.
Solid.
Yeah.
Solid.
Solid choice.
solid choices. We applaud you. All right. Today we are talking team ups, crossovers, big events, the differences, our favorites, the ones that didn't work, why comic publishers do them, all of that stuff. So let me give you an example. Midnight Suns crossover. I brought that because I figured no one has that.
No one has
I
that.
have the originals. I don't have the.
Yeah.
Dude, I've tried to find the originals, and they are.
I have all of
I
them.
love you. See, this is why we should abscond together.
Right.
So this is a crossover. This is an event.
Yes.
There is a difference, believe it or not. It's nuanced, but there is a difference. I don't even know if the difference matters all that much, but
It kind
it does. It does.
Well, events usually have farther.
They do.
You know,
They do.
I
So
can do this farther.
Farther. You're
They have
swimming.
breastsstrokes.
Right.
They
They're-
swim
they're-
through the universe and in their
ramifications.
wake.
Yes.
Yes.
Whereas crossover is usually pretty insular.
So team ups
Yes.
are just that, like, you've got Spider-Man in a book, Captain America comes in, they team up. So Captain America's got his own book, Spider-Man has his own book. Spider-Man goes to Captain America, they're teaming up, or vice versa.
Or sometimes they do like crossover.
Sure.
Well,
There was a book for a while called I'm Marvel Team Up,
Yep.
which was Spider-Man and sometimes
Similar to DC's Brave and the Bold, which was
Brave
usually
and the Bold.
Batman
and
yeah.
and they did the Marvel supervillain team up too for a while. They had a
Probably.
Yeah, there was a supervillain book too. There's a Marvel supervillain team up book.
I don't think I've read that one.
Oh wait,
That's
wait.
exciting.
Are you thinking of superior foes?
No, there is a Marvel supervillain team up book.
Is it called Supervillain Team Up?
So I think it might be.
Well, I'm googling
You-
that.
you-
I
know
know.
that. I'm
so
Excuse
excited.
us. We have to be right back.
Get
Do
into
this
the
while we
Google first,
research. So that's a team up. That typically happens inside of like one character's book. Like Daredevil will team up with Deadpool or Spider-Man, whatever. That happens all the time. Crossovers are when you get a.
Hey!
Whoa!
Thank you, Zach.
At the speed of light.
This is so
And of
great.
course it's
He's so
Doom
on it.
because
Doom and
Zach's
more.
favorite
Doom
is
and-
Doom.
Doom and who else?
The submariner. Thank you.
The Submariner.
I was saying who else for it.
And then, so that's a team up. A crossover is when you have one sort of like meta narrative or bigger story told across several different comic book issues.
So wait, quick question,
Yeah.
just to clarify. So do you consider two people in each other's books a team up or crossover? So like there's a whole
say
Spider-Man,
it's
there's a
both,
whole Miles
right?
Morales Spider-Man and Spider-Gwen thing
Spider-Gwen,
going
yeah.
on now. Now is that a team up or a crossover or some
Well,
amalgamation?
so
That's
is-
a hookup.
is-
Is what that is.
Right? Eventually.
Such a hookup. I think, and please correct me if you've got a different one. I think a team up is in one book and a crossover is in a couple books. You have to buy more than
Yeah.
like more than one.
If you have to buy
So
more
it-
than one title,
So it
to
doesn't matter
finish the
how many
story,
titles, just as long as it's more than one, it's team up.
If
That's
you
a
don't,
crossover.
if you don't buy Spider-Gwen, but you do buy Spider-Man, and you have to buy the Spider-Gwen to finish the story, that's a crossover.
That's a crossover.
All right, cool.
Just
Wanted to clarify for myself and the folks at home.
No,
Yeah,
no.
that's interesting. Like I would tend to say that the team up is like the thing that's happening. Like the heroes helping each other to achieve a goal. Like they're having a team up right now, and it can happen during a crossover or during one of their
Yeah,
books.
Well,
or
yeah, of
during
course.
an
Well, I
event.
mean, every,
So that's sort of like a-
I think by
That's
by,
why I threw this in here.
Sorry.
I was like,
By
you know
nature
what?
of
Let's
the-
parse it. This will be fun.
But I think by nature of the delineation, every single delineation carries the one before it.
Yeah. Okay.
That is fair.
Like
Right?
all
Every
crossovers
crossovers are team ups. All
most events are crossovers.
Yeah.
Like
no, almost all events are crossovers.
All events are crossovers. Yeah.
Like
Typically,
as soon as
yeah.
you step up, you get the other three for free.
Yeah. So like an event is crossovers and team ups. A crossover it is typically a team up of some sort.
And a team up
And a
is-
team up
is a
can
team up.
have it's like
It's a
it's like
guest
you've got
appearance,
atoms.
like, yeah.
You've got or quarks, let's say.
Yep.
Those are team ups.
Right.
You know? And then
that your subscription
the
notice?
Well, the
atom
corpse would be the characters, right? And the atom would.
No, like the quarks are the No,
No,
the
no.
quarks would be the characters.
Let's,
The
yeah.
atom would be the team up.
And the
Then-
crossover would be the molecule.
We actually skipped
Yes.
subatomic particles, but I'm just gonna go
I
with
did.
it.
I was going to say positrons, negatrons. Yeah, and
Okay. Let's go back.
as our science viewers are like, what?
They're just
are
like,
you-"
stop!
getting it
Just,
all
just
wrong.
talk comics! Just talk comics!
You're idiots! Stop!
We know.
We do know our
we're
comic
idiots.
stuff, though. We do.
That's interesting though, because if you went with an atomic model, like the protons can never cross to other things, so there'd be like characters who can't go to other books somehow, and then the electrons would get moved around
Actually,
between them
via
because they're not attached to-
editorial, what do you call it? Editorial strictures, that does happen.
That can
Yeah.
happen,
They are
yeah.
like, no, you can't have
They're
that
like
character.
off limits.
Yeah, they're like, no, you can't do that.
That's
But the characters are the basics. The team up is one step up. Crossovers are a step up. Event is the ultimate, and that an event always has all of those things involved in it. Right? Yeah.
And events often have their own book.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Almost
like
always, don't
almost
they?
Secret Wars here. This was its own title. Now they had crossovers with like Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Avengers. Like they had all those other crossover books that fed into this main
We
story.
call that a tie-in.
Oh, so now we're even.
Ooh, we're getting the tie-ins. Ooh.
So is that not considered a crossover, or
It's
is that a
part of the
specific
crossover.
type of crossover?
It's that
part
part.
of the crossover. It's part of the event.
I think it's above a crossover but below an event.
Yeah.
They're
Or-
they're
or is it on the
overlapping
same-
categories.
Is level of the crossover? Is it on
Is
the
it on
crossover
the
level?
same level as event?
No.
We're-
Well, no, because you don't need to read the tie-in to get the event.
That is
Yes.
true. That
It
is
is
true.
less than the event
This
itself.
is-
It's just something that kind of, hey, look, this is what's happening here, and we think this would be an additional
It's-
bit of
it's like
And
for
that's what would make categories like this useful, is so that you can bear in mind things like, oh, right, if I think of this as a tie-in, that tells me this is something you don't
We need a pie
unless you're
chart.
interested.
I mean,
Kind of-
we need a flow chart.
Flowchart. Well,
Yeah.
this is interesting. I actually thought it's like if for those of you who watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I know there's like 4 of you currently watching.
I'm one of them.
I haven't seen the new
Doom,
one. I'm very
Doom,
excited.
by the way.
I haven't
very
missed
excited.
Back
a
this
single
week, right?
episode.
I did.
Yes,
I
it
haven't
did.
seen it.
Yeah,
I
I
can't
saw.
wait.
Oh, you haven't seen it yet?
I haven't
I
seen it
can't
yet.
wait. I'm so
Is
excited.
it good?
Look at your
I hear
face.
it's great. I hear it's
Okay.
great.
Okay.
But like it's like that moment in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where they go, "Wow, there was a Thor movie that happened. That's cool," and then kind of carry on with their day.
That is a tie-in.
That's a
That was a
tie-in.
tie-in.
It didn't really.
You didn't need it to understand, like, Winter Soldier or the Thor movies, but if you were...
And you don't need it to understand Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but...
Well, like, in that sense, they made it part of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so it wasn't like it was a throwaway episode.
But,
Well,
if,
no, it
you,
was
but if you
like-
hadn't seen Thor either, you're kind of like, oh, that's weird. But you're okay
yeah,
with
they
it.
try to
it's
give you
so
everything
good.
you need to know without
Right.
assuming you'd seen the other thing.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Tie-in.
Right. So
And-
tie-in.
Actually, but then sometimes tie-ins are completely dependent upon the crossover event.
Well,
to
then it's not
understand
a
There are
tie-in.
times.
Then it's like I call it a Keystone book. Do you guys have a name for like a book that's
Oh.
part of
Now
the
we-
crossover?
the flow chart
This is
expands.
we are aware that this is complicated, which
So,
is why.
and
But
yeah,
we're
and
just
by the
discussing,
way,
we're figuring
this
it out.
is-
We're getting
yeah.
it together.
This
So-
is very like we are like parsing it, and it seems like maybe it's all absurd and doesn't matter, but it actually kind of does in some
Yeah.
ways, because like if it's a tie-in and it's like a separate title tie-in, so let's say it's like Iron Man Road to Civil War, something like that.
Yeah, but
and it's
then
separate
there's
from
like,
the
but then
Iron
there's
Man
like,
title.
but then there's like Iron Man Road to Civil. But is it
Those are
Iron Man?
just the
Wait, is
issues
Iron
of
Man
Iron
Road
Man,
to Civil
though, right?
War an issue of Iron Man, or is it a separate
Sometimes
miniseries?
sometimes they
Because sometimes it
separate
is.
it out.
Yeah.
Sometimes they separate it out.
That's
We
what I'm
should
saying.
maybe zoom out, like,
Reel it
so
in.
what we're talking about here are the sort of natural outgrowths of this kind of complex storytelling that you can do in these big interconnected universes. So mostly what we're talking about right now are American comics, Marvel, and DC. Other companies do it. Valiant has been having tons of crossovers and
Oh, yeah.
events. Like, it's not unique to them. And other, like, strictly
Image
in the
Wild
Had
crossover
one
sense,
going
tons
for a
of-
while, and then it died.
Yeah. They might finish it someday,
Someday.
right? No.
No.
Finish what you start, guys.
We can't.
Well, let's.
But like, yeah, so it's these complex terms are really designed to help you navigate them. Like, it doesn't
And
really
these
matter
are-
if you call it an event or a crossover or a tie-in or
Right,
whatever.
and these are our designations. These are not like official. These are like us just trying to put some commonality to the phraseology
Nice.
to kind of quantify
But this conversation
and
is,
mollify.
Mollify
this
the-
conversation is designed
Codify.
to give you the like. Is it basics or is this like overly complicated so it's not basics?
It's
at
not
all?
basics,
Okay,
but it's
this
not.
is designed
It's moderate advanced.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like comic books 201.
This would be
We're
like
skipping ahead.
you're getting into your kayak. You're going to do your first rapid, and you have to know some basics before you go in. And event books are a bit of like they are roaring rapids.
Yeah.
They're designed. They're not designed for new readers. They're designed for
Funny you
invested
should say
readers.
that. The second comic book I ever read was the second issue of Infinity War.
What?
I had no idea. I saw Infinity
Wait,
War.
Infinity War?
Infinity
Not Gauntlet.
War, not Gauntlet.
War. Oh.
Infinity War.
I
With
actually.
the Magus and Adam Warlock. Yeah, that was my first comic was Cable that I actually owned. I had
You're
read a
still
couple
in the
X-Men
comics,
comics.
bro.
For
You.
those of you playing at home, that's
That's a
like
really confusing
deciding that
thing.
you're going to get into fantasy fiction by reading like the collected short stories that are tied into the Game of
Silmarillion.
Thrones
Yeah,
series.
it's like,
Like
yeah,
some-
I'm gonna get into Lord of the Rings by reading Silmarillion.
Yeah, that'll do you.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't start with
that works
Hobbit.
for you,
Start with
that's you.
Silmarillion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to read all of these.
Yeah. That's a really good comparison.
Yeah, and it wasn't even issue 1. I had to go back to the
Yeah,
store,
issue-
find issue 1 to find out what had happened in issue 2, as if I had even understood
as
it.
if
at
you
the
had a
age of 12.
frame of reference for issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just like,
amazing.
Wolverine! He has a double? What? Spider-Man has 6 arms? Oh my! Yeah. Wow. Yeah. But I had been collecting the cards for a long time, so I already knew a lot of the characters.
Yeah,
Okay.
like
Okay.
you weren't
Okay.
starting
That
straight
helps.
from zero because you knew what a Spider-Man was.
Exactly. So, anyway.
Well, this
Oh,
is
man,
good
that just
too,
let me think about
because
Beyonder.
movies have started having their first crossover in event, like Civil
Yeah,
War, and then we're getting
exactly.
the Infinity War movies. Like this is a thing that we're now going to be doing to our film. So I guess it's good to be like wading into
Just
this a
talk
little
both
bit.
about like the possibilities and the pitfalls.
Yeah. So we know those differences.
Wait. You never delineated Keystone.
So the
Yeah,
notion,
yeah.
okay, so the notion of Keystone is you have this big event book, and say it's 4 issues long, and that's kind of the main story of everything that's happening. But there are heroes that are more important, like in the Civil War, it was Captain America and Iron Man, like in the movie, are those the two? And like whatever Hawkeye's getting up to, whatever Black Widow's getting up to, that's interesting, but that's not really a crux of the story. But that Captain America, that normal Captain America book and that normal Iron Man book are going to have things happening in them that are real cruxes to that story. And while you can kind of ignore them, their stories are actually moving the plot forward. You're not just spending some time with a character on the peripheral.
And then they have, and then like I said, sometimes they have their specific books aside from their normal books that are specifically
A
to
special
talk about their
miniseries or
event. Yeah,
one-shot,
special
yeah.
miniseries that talks about the event itself.
Yeah.
And that would
And
be,
then some-
would that be
someti-
Keystone?
That would only if it moves the plot along. Other than that, then it's just like it's a special keystone or it's a special tie-in.
Okay.
Yeah, we've never used a specific word for that. It's a question
Yeah,
that we handle
it's
all the time.
interesting.
Like, which ones, if you're
Do
going
I need to
beyond
read?
the spine of the book, which are the most important ones to get? And that becomes a very interesting question. And, like, if this sounds pointlessly complicated, there's a really good reason to ask these questions, which is, if you're telling a story that involves a bunch of characters, you have to make a choice about how you're going to do it. Either you take them all, like, if the rest of the universe is going to continue on while it goes, then you can either take them all away and put them somewhere else,
Boom.
and just be like, everything that happens to them happens here, and then you'll see the before and the after and the people who got, like, left behind while it's going on in the regular ongoing stuff of their books. Or you can have a thing where, like, the main events will happen in this book, like, say, Civil War 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But since everybody's books didn't get canceled during that time, you're still going to see, like, a little bit more of Tony Stark's side of the story. And that's in the corresponding issues of his book, which will usually keep whatever their numbering was, but they'll carry some banner or badge that says, like, Civil War. This can be a source of great confusion. It might be a thing I do next week when we get into the thing is, like, showing some covers and being like, here's the part that's the title, here's the part that's the tie-in.
Yes.
I'm very sorry on behalf of comic book companies that it is so difficult to tell sometimes what you are looking at.
And by the
They're
way,
trying to help you by putting all the information on the cover, but sometimes it doesn't work.
and by the way, having known that, even like for me, like like for us, I would imagine it's still daunting. Like when Civil War 2 came out, I was just like, I just can't. Like I just want to read my books. You just did Secret Wars and Infinity, and now
No, it looks like
I
every
just
book in the
can't.
Marvel Universe
I
just got
love
conscripted
how, I
into
love
the
how
army.
Secret Wars had its own, every single event had its own every single event book.
So
Yeah.
Secret Wars did a different model, which instead of having all the other books sort of go on during that period.
not this Secret Wars. There's
No.
three
Oh
Secret
no,
Wars.
sorry.
Wait, 3?
There's the
Oh,
Secret
Wars
War.
2.
Secret Wars
And then
2
the new
with the
Secret Wars, that's
Beyonder,
right.
who's
And
like
there's Secret Wars
That was
2.
into
yeah,
like
I love
David
that.
Bowie
Oh,
White.
that was amazing.
You know?
Then there's the
Secret Wars,
Bendis
yeah.
Secret Wars.
Then,
Secret
oh,
Wars
Secret
singular.
War,
War.
singular with Fury.
I'm so sorry.
So there's 3 Secret
I'm so
Wars,
sorry.
and there's a Secret
Hey, Origin
War.
of Daisy.
I know, it's
The
such a
first
good book.
Secret
I
Wars
love it.
was 85.
Yeah.
Sounds
Secret
about
Wars
right.
2 was 88, I want to say.
Sure.
Secret War.
Man, that
was
sounds like good spacing for events.
2004, and then Secret Wars was a couple years ago.
You're a monster.
85. It was 85. Good call.
So let's take a moment. Let's talk about Secret War for a minute because this
It's one of the first.
it was one of the
It's
first, and
Was it for Crisis?
First actual bit.
We were talking about this last week.
Came
They
out
were
right around the same
right
time
around
as
the same
Crisis.
time.
Okay.
I think Crisis may have been like 6 months before.
and I discovered this book later on, but I knew about what Secret Wars was not because of the comic book, because of something else.
The toys.
The toys.
Toys!
The toys.
I
were
still have some of mine.
By the
amazing.
way, I have a picture
don't
of
remember,
the
like,
toys.
Doctor
That's the
Doom's
one
little
thing.
roller
Oh, yeah.
was
I have
the
a picture of the
Oh,
toys.
yeah. And then
the
it shoot
gym. I don't
something?
know if you see
Didn't it
those
shoot
or not.
something?
no. It was doing a giant wheel. Like,
Oh, no, that was
and
the
then
other
it would flip.
No,
and-
didn't it have like things on the side with shot?
Oh yeah, no, it
missiles?
shot things too.
Yeah.
But like it would hit 2 figures.
Oh, the cat cycles!
The
I forgot about the cat
shield and the
cycles!
shield with
And
the
the
And
shield
the
with the
reflective
holograms.
things.
Yeah.
And you always
With
lost
that
Wolverine's claws.
Oh, this is how I knew my
Iron
father
Man has
loved
a
me.
gun.
Was these figures? Oh God.
And why does
I've got Daredevil and Doctor Octopus at home.
Let me ask you something though. Why does Iron Man have a gun?
Bro, he's Iron Man.
Right.
He doesn't have repulsor blast. He has a gun.
Why do they all have shields?
The semi-confirmed
reflective
legend here is of course that the toy people wanted to make like an alternate version of Spider-Man, and they were like, so to give him like a different costume or something, and they were like, we'll make like a black costume. And the rest was
Blood-ow.
history
Yep.
because that black costume came home with him and turned out not to be a costume and
Turned out to be
yada yada Venom.
Venom. There
Yada
we
yada
go.
Venom. Oh, look at that.
Oh,
Hey,
bring on the
look
bad
at
guy.
that.
Doctor Doom. Oh.
They've been making these giant recreations of these.
Yes,
Like
I've
the
seen
Star
them, yeah.
Wars ones where they size them up,
Yep.
and you feel like Lily Tomlin in her giant chair, only with toys.
Nice.
We have the Hobgoblin in it.
They,
Oh
well,
my
they've
God.
also
Do you
also
really?
did the limited covers recently, which were
Right.
all the old Secret Wars action figures.
And then they did a re-release of these Secret Wars action figures in normal size, didn't they? Or something?
They did a couple years ago, I
Yeah.
think, packaged with one of the issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
See this real quick?
I bought one of those because I didn't have these.
It's
So-
the vehicles that really killed me, though. I'm really sad they haven't done the vehicle because that Doctor Doom wheel was just the best thing.
I want the
I
capsule
want
with
to
the
show you
sidecar.
how you know that this is absolutely for toys.
I'll put it on the.
So,
Put it, yeah,
so
put it on the-
Marvel want who was it? Toy Biz that they got in with?
I wanna say
Or-
Toy Biz.
I think it was Toy
Wait,
Biz.
no, that
I
was
don't know
later.
this part.
That was
So
later.
Marvel-
It's Kenner.
Kenner. So
Yep.
Marvel wanted to get into the toy business. They had been pitched, but the toy companies were afraid that people wouldn't know their characters. So Marvel did a book, Secret Wars, specifically to sell toys, and you can tell because they have the entire lineup of all the possible toys within the first 5 pages of the comic,
Very nice.
where they're all
They
basically
didn't
talking,
write all
saying
sold
who they
separately
are.
on there, but
They did not, but they're
They
basically
might
like,
as well have.
I'm this, and I am Professor X. These are my X-Men: Storm, Nightcrawler, Rogue, Cyclops, Wolverine, and Colossus, and Lockheed the Dragon. I am, of course, the Hulk. They just
I like
go.
that was Colossus'
down.
voice
But
for
so,
Loki the
yeah.
Dragon.
we've had somebody, it's not officially in our questions, but somebody sort of asking about newbie friendliness for events, and this is one of the interesting things where, like, we're kind of making fun of the fact that, like, this story was created to sell toys, but it also, for a lot of folks, if you knew who 1 or 2 of those people were and you picked this book up, it
was a
said,
good first
look,
book.
here's the X-Men. If you only know Captain America, you might like these guys, and if
Yeah.
you only know the X-Men, you might like the Hulk. And it, like, so it introduces everybody and tries to put you on, like, an even playing field
It was a
as it
simpler
tells the
time.
story.
It was definitely a simpler. It was like comic books were a little less
60 cents each.
chaotic.
They were inventing the massive selling crazy event.
20
so
cents,
I know.
25.
Godspeed.
But one of the
Still only
hallmarks
35
of
cents.
the Secret War comic is that even though like the Avengers and the X-Men had loose crossovers here and there, this is the first time
They really got in it.
they're really
Everybody in
together.
the kitchen
and
sink.
the Avengers and the X-Men did not trust each other, and the Avengers were like, "Wait, those mutants, they're out to get us. They're gonna supplant the rest of humanity and all that stuff." So like this is kind like
And
Secret Wars
Spider-Man
for
kicked the butt of
Marvel,
all the
Yeah.
X-Men.
Yeah.
Just whooped them all.
but
I
Secret
like that you
Wars
turned into a
really
30s
was like
newscaster
a
when you do that.
giant deal. Like it didn't quite do what
Oh,
Crisis
Molecule
did,
Man.
where like right.
And
It didn't
Titania.
quite do what
Oh,
Crisis on Infinite Earths did, where it like said Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3, Earth 1000, all combined into one continuum.
Right.
It didn't do that, but it did bring
The brands.
100% of the Marvel Universe together for the first time in the modern era. Like they had loose crossovers, but this is the first skadoosh. This is Marvel, and it happened in '85,
I love
which
how-
is a
sorry.
little over 20 years after the full thing had been established. So
I love how Spider-Woman's new costume conveniently looked like Spider-Man's new black costume.
Yeah,
It's
that worked
like-
out very well.
Hey, she's wearing the same costume. Isn't that wacky and fun?
It was, and like this was very clever because they took everybody off Earth for this book, and they put them on a big battle world, which was literally like
An amalgamation of
It's called Battle World.
different.
Yeah.
a character named
Parts
the
of Earth.
Beyonder, who was basically supposed to be the
Space
audience,
god, yeah.
Space God audience member, was like, I want to see everybody fight, and was literally a god playing with superheroes like action
Dude,
figures.
has somebody written like the definitive look at Crisis on Infinite Earths and this in terms of audience stand-ins and like our ideas about
Interesting,
comics
no.
and what
No.
happens when you get them all together?
Only in my head.
Do it, internet.
One of you should
I know,
do
isn't
that.
that great?
Oh, look at
here,
that
I'll put
splash
up.
page.
That's
It's so good.
pretty. That's so pretty.
So pretty.
Yeah, look at that. That's just gorgeous.
But the Beyonder, in a lot
We
of
should
ways, really
throw
was
some
like the
creator
Marvel.
credits out there, except I can't remember suddenly who.
Oh yeah, no, here.
The Beyonder really was in a lot of ways like the kid at home playing with the
Yeah.
toys.
Jim Shooter
know?
wrote this. Mike Zeck and Bob Layton were the pencilers. Jim Shooter was one of the Marvel bigwigs in the 80s.
Yeah, he was also the editor at the time, wasn't he?
I
Or
think
did
he
he
had-
become the editor right
I
after?
don't know if it was post-editing, because I know he was editing earlier in the 80s.
Yeah. So that's Secret Wars. But in the meantime, they had tie-in crossovers. I think maybe you would hyphenate it that way, right? A tie-in crossover, because it's a separate book that deals partially with like if the Fantastic Four, Mr. Fantastic, who was on? It was Mr. Fantastic. Let me see.
It was
She-Hulk?
like they found the dome
She-Hulk?
over them in
No,
the park,
Van Grim
and
was
then
still
they were
there.
just gone.
No, it was the original 4 at that point.
The Invisible Woman did not make it into Secret Wars.
Really?
Nope.
Yeah,
So
that's
who
what I
took
thought.
her place?
And
There wasn't an Invisible Woman in Secret Wars.
No, who took her place? Who was the fourth member of the Fantastic Four at that point?
No, she was just trapped.
was
Like
just
the
trapped.
others went
She
into
was-
the dome in
okay.
Central Park and
She
got.
didn't get-
And she was on Earth by herself. So she had 3 other
So it was the
Fantastic Four
because
members.
someone
Who were they,
someone
you know?
thought she wouldn't make a very good action figure.
Exactly.
Also, this is comic book legend. I don't know if it's 100% true,
It
but
probably is.
We're believers in
supposedly,
rumor.
like Wasp was leading the Avengers at the time, so there's like a thing right at the beginning of the book where Wasp is kind of like, "Well, Cap, it makes more sense for you to lead," and they just go with it, like because they're like, "It's a big crossover, and he's more famous, so he gets to be the leader, even though you are literally the leader of the Avengers right now."
Oh, and here's.
And this is the beginning of characters getting dissed in big crossover books.
Yep. And this
Battle
is,
World
that's
being
Battle World being formed. Yeah. Sorry, I found the page. I wanted
Yeah,
to throw it
no,
out
no.
there.
It's also my least favorite Wasp costume in there. She looks like it's
Wasp
like
has had a lot of
it's
dumb
like the
costumes.
weirdest
She's a
strapless
fashion
evening gown
designer,
ever.
and it's just like
yeah, she's
lot
a
of
fashion
bad
designer who
designs.
doesn't really design very well.
bless her heart, Jenna Van Dyne.
And
yeah.
she's the one in the green down there with the W neck.
It's
right in
almost
front of the
it's now
Hulk.
become a running gag that anytime a
There
character
you
in the
go.
Marvel universe gets rebranded, the Wasp comes in to be like, "We're gonna give you a whole makeover," and they go, "No,
No,
I'm good.
please, I'm good.
I'll just
I'm
do my
good.
own.
I'm fine."
So
And that's also didn't they actually reveal that I can talk.
Welcome to the Wednesday Club.
didn't they also reveal? Nah, never mind.
Gee,
Well, but like this.
Rhodes was revealed to be in the Iron Man costume to
Oh,
the
is this
superheroes
well?
at large
Yeah,
in this book.
that's
This
fantastic.
was the first year, right?
Don't remember.
That's the first time they were actually revealed. Yeah, because he made a big deal out of it, where it was like a big
Brody
deal.
had
not a
been
big deal.
filling in for Iron Man
Yep.
while Tony sobered up.
Yeah, because I don't think Tony's in Secret War. Tony is not in Secret War.
I don't know.
Tony is not in Secret War, dude.
I'm
It's all
not
Rhodes.
saying
It's
you're
so
wrong.
wrong.
It's been a couple years since I read it last.
It's all roadie, baby.
So this is another interesting thing of like depending on when your event book comes along, whatever's been going on in your regular books will either get sort of
Under 150
Yeah.
billion.
Keep talking,
tons.
Amy. I don't wanna
whatever's been
interrupt
going
you.
on in your regular books will either get like sort of shift reverted, such as like whoever was the canon leader right that week might give way to whoever they think of as the more appropriate one, or you go with whatever your current status quo is. You promote a character like Rhodey in the Iron Man suit to the rest of your audience to be like, here's what's going on over in Iron Man. If you're intrigued by this, follow it back. He's got a book every month.
Right. Your battery.
We
So
should
here's-
plug in.
Here's one of my favorites.
Do we have a plug? We need a plug
We need a plug for the
for the
the
tablet.
live
For
feed.
the tablet.
This is
live
one of my
feed tablet.
favorites. An entire mountain
Yes.
is thrown onto the Avengers, and Hulk is the only one to save all of them.
And he's not happy.
He bears the entire weight of the mountain on top of them while they figure out how to get out from under the weight of an entire mountain while Hulk
They
protects
did a
them.
Doom
great
dropped the mountain on him.
homage to this recently, and I can't remember where now.
Thank
There was like
you.
a shoot. Somebody homaged that specific like situation.
I remember what you're talking about, but
I don't know
so foggy.
under what circumstances.
Could not tell you what the specifics.
Yeah, that's right. It was Molecule Man. He carried it over, dropped it on him, and then where's that one?
So I'm-
One panel.
Because they also stole a bunch of the bad guys. We sort of forgot that in the pitch, but like, yeah, took a bunch of good guys, took a
Right
bunch of bad
there,
guys,
right
made them
there.
fight.
Everything you'd want to make an action figure out of.
Yeah, basically. So and the Beyonder was very much like the kid at home saying, "Here's the bad guys, here's the good guys, smash, 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 smash." So anyway, it's a little tricky. We're getting it
fixing our
together, guys.
tech.
So sorry.
Ah!
Well, I was going to say since we're talking we've got this crossover book. I was thinking of another or event book. I was thinking of my first event book, which was Infinity Gauntlet.
Oh,
Which was the one that kind of was my first like. You mean they all come together and do something and like that's a book mostly about a bunch of people standing around wondering how they can be useful. That's an entire book of people standing drinking like it's an awful lot of like Captain America drinking a cup of coffee going, I'm a guy with a shield. I don't even know what I'm doing here. and then Adam Warlock, who's basically this big
he's like Space Jesus.
gold, big gold space
Hey,
Jesus.
Infinity Gauntlet.
There he is. There's Adam Warlock, who I dressed
Call to
up
arms.
with as on Halloween one year.
Did you
I
really?
did. I loved Adam Warlock.
Really?
He was
You
the
don't have that
coolest.
picture anywhere, do you?
Oh no.
Does your mother?
Probably.
Let's contact your
Hey,
mother.
tell
I
us
think we need to
Mom.
get in contact with mom and see what that
Mom's,
was.
mom's,
Yeah.
mom's telling me to come visit soon, so we'll see if that'll.
There you go.
But yeah, no, Adam, it just walks in and every now and then just goes like, "There's really important things happening, and we need 100 people with superpowers to run in that direction." Then they all die, and it's it was just it's a
Except
big
it's on the other
ridiculous.
side of the universe, so they have to all go to Doctor Strange, who says, "There's a door, go fight." And they all transport through his magic door to the other side of space to fight Thanos, who's a god by that point.
God of Death, basically.
God of Death.
It's Yeah, that was my first. I mean, like, it's a nice, weird little self-contained book.
It is. It is.
Weirdly.
That really got a lot of stuff else happening outside of it that tied back and tied
And
in.
that was
kinda set
another
up
one
the
on the
90s
model
in
of
a
like
lot of
have
ways.
Infinity Gauntlet take a bunch of characters sort of out of their regular thing and tell it in mostly within the pages of that book.
Right.
That was kind of another
Yeah,
one on
like
that model.
half the book either took place in the kitchen of the Avengers Mansion with them just standing there going, "I don't know what I'm doing here," and, like every other conversation. This is Thanos. I don't know what I'm doing here, or Thanos. And then the other half was on basically a giant piece of floating rock.
Like,
With Thanos going,
we all make jokes about like Thanos sitting and being on like weird space rocks all the time in the Avengers movies. Like
Kind of
everyone's
his
always
thing,
like,
though.
But that's kind of his-
Where is
that's
he?
kind
Like
of
he's
his
just
shtick.
floating on a rock.
Right.
Yeah, that's his thing.
If Thanos is moving, you have
Yep.
problems.
yeah.
Yeah, right there.
I love that
Yeah.
cover so much.
God,
it's
it's an amazing cover.
It's so good. But yeah, Infinity Gauntlet really kind of, in a lot of ways, set the stage for the '90s because like then you got Infinity War, then you got Infinity Crusade. You had like Adam Warlock and the Guardians of Infinity or the
Right.
Infinity Watch. Yeah.
What do you watch?
A lot of the cosmic stuff that came around in the
Did
'90s
launch
was
it, yeah.
all based on
Infinity
Infinity Gauntlet.
And over on the DC side, they were using crossovers to either clean up their universe, which they would have to do a lot because they had a slightly. Oh, I love that. That's so awesome.
Oh.
Thank you. Purple evil warlock. Make it.
Do you want to confuse the audience with who the Magus is?
No. They're not ready
Okay.
for that. They're not ready for that. There's no
We'll
need.
get there.
There's no need. No.
We'll do a whole episode on Magus.
Oh
No, we won't. No, we won't.
Well, maybe we'll do a reverse episode where we just talk about reversies.
Oh, that's not a
That'd be
bad
fun.
idea.
Oh.
Okay,
You do a reverse.
I am going to throw this in. It's not officially one of our questions, but at some point, Todasol said there was actually an arc of Secret Wars in one of the Spider-Man animations. It was my first contact with comic book heroes.
They're
Oh.
I love that the shows and the cartoons are
We'll
kind
throw
of
it back a little bit,
We'll
try
bring
to-
it back a bit. Yeah, it's it's a great way to introduce new characters. If you have a character that's going to get their own book,
Right.
You want to show them off a little bit,
Yep.
and DC did that. They had like
From the
Bloodline.
pages of.
Yeah, well, like that's how we got Hitman from the DC universe. Who's I guess he's kind of gone now, or like a Guardian. They like brought Guardian
Because
back.
they've
and
got
then-
All-Star Section 8 had a book, and then, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, but like it's a great way to introduce characters, and then DC was also using it to like change up their
Rosters a little bit.
well, and even like the very notion of their continuity. They were kind of using it as a big. They were using their crossover events as a big stick to beat continuity, which is why we got things like the death and return of Superman.
Yeah.
We have a couple shout-outs for Zero Hour in the chat.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
somebody's first crossover,
Nice.
and then
Zero
Dark
Hour
Ivan
was
says it
had a
was
lot.
so underrated. I
It's
haven't
very
read Zero
underrated.
Hour.
0 Hour is very underrated. It's a little. I mean, like you have to be okay with kind of the age of it. It's got a little. It's shown its age a little bit, but once you're comfortable reading an older book, there's a lot to like in there. Look at that cover. There's
Trying to
just
find
so
the
much.
name.
happening.
That's the one where Green Lantern
Yeah.
like becomes not Phalanx,
Parallax.
Parallax.
Parallax?
There
Yeah.
we are. Look at that. Yeah, it's the first time they make a villain. They turn one of their heroes into a villain.
And
Which
he's like a major.
Oh,
yeah,
it was
no, he was-
it was amazing to read. It was the first thing that got me. I was not a Green Lantern fan until these books happened. I was
Really?
like, this is I didn't,
Hal Jordan
See?
Green. Did you become a Hal Jordan Green Lantern fan or Kyle Rayner?
Kyle.
Or,
This
I-
is so interesting because these events are where you often get new people bond to them, and then other people like get real mad and never forgive them.
Right, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Hal Jordan going Parallax is like
turned a lot of
a
people.
point
Yeah, it's
that
a-
was it for a lot of
yeah.
people, but for other people they were like, "This is the coolest."
It was
thing I've ever
such a good turn. It was so interesting.
Let me just say though, you hit the nail on the head. That's why publishers do these giant events because
Right.
they are
Trying to
great.
bring more people in.
Like they're, hey, come read this book. This giant event is happening with all of our characters, and if you like Iron Man, guess what? You can go read all of those Iron Man books. You know. So, but that's why older fans like become gradually more and more frustrated. Like me, like I love big event books, but like honestly, for the first time ever in my entire life, I was like, "Oh my God, Civil War 2, I just don't know." If
Well,
So
the-
there is a concept, there's a name for it that's bandied about among fans. There's a
Event
concept called event fatigue.
fatigue.
And this is sort of, if the idea is like, if every day is the most special day ever, then it's just confusing and exhausting.
Yeah.
And the truth is, like, that doesn't mean events are evil, but like, there's a very real balance that has to be sought over time, where you're sort of like, are we giving the individual stories enough time to breathe? Are we giving our audience time to recover? Do they have the capacity or the money to care about this
Or the
many things at
desire.
once? Yeah, and it's a combination of trying to make sure that whatever the next thing is worth their attention and their time and their money and their love, and also just balance it against the fact that if you're just telling your story off on the side and you keep getting hijacked into these major events, sometimes it can bring a bunch of new readers to your book, but sometimes it can just derail whatever you had going on.
Yeah.
And I'll say I think the nature of events has kind of changed over the years. Where at one time I think it was more about it was a good jumping on point for new people. But I think that events themselves have become a little insular, where it's not necessarily about getting new readers. It's about taking your existing readers and trying to get them to read different books.
Right.
So
It's
it's more
kind of
about
shifting the readership.
Yeah, as opposed to growing it, which I think. I mean, like, I think there's an argument for that. And the nice thing about the comic book industry is that it does evolve and change and learn and make new mistakes all the time.
Just this week, Marvel actually declared that I think if I read this random news release correctly, that there's going to be a breather after the next big story in Marvel is called Secret Empire, and they have said there will not be a major event on that level for about 18 months afterwards, which is about 12
But there's
going to
be mini events.
Then we usually
The mini events I'm fine with because the mini events are typically like by publishing, like
Mini
sort of
events.
like what is like the
Somebody
X-Men?
said Inferno was their first event, and that's sort of a great example of an event that was just like all of the different X-Men related books tying in with each other. But and was Thor in that one? No, he was in Mutant Massacre.
He was a Mutant Massacre,
but
yeah,
like
yeah.
mostly X books. But that's like doesn't hit Captain America and the Fantastic Four and all of that.
So that's a question that I have. Like, what? So, like, is that like a sub editor? So you've got your editor in chief, but then you've got an editor for all the X books, right? Like, is that like a division, like the X-Men division? And
like,
They do have
usually
they
say,
have the
I'm in
X
the
editor
X-Men
and
office.
the Spider-Man editor and the X-Men office, the Spider-Man office, the Captain America Avengers.
And like they have this. Although DC's a little more mushed. I know that
They
like
have a Superman office and a Batman office.
But
They,
Superman,
like,
the Wonder Woman books are under the Superman office.
They've recently moved.
Okay, there's a whole.
The sort of, and part of that's just part of the who's working, which book follows with which editor probably just has to do with like who has time and interest and like room on their plate. But for a long time. There was one office that handled Superman and Wonder Woman over there, and a separate office for the Bat books because there were always so many of them. And I don't think these are physical offices, but they say like I'm the Batman office. And now I think like the Bat editor who's handling Detective also does Wonder Woman.
I would read
and
Bat
like
editor.
Midnighter. Like
Bat
it's
editor.
Bat editor. That's what you call an assistant editor's month idea.
Yeah.
But I Darkwing Duck Bat editor. I am the editor who edits in the night.
Man.
Right?
By the way, if you've ever read the Darkwing Duck comic books,
I have not.
they're so good.
Are they really?
Oh my! Get the Dark Duck Returns. I think. Oh my God.
But Aaron
Wait,
Sparrow
Dark Duck or
also
Negaduck?
It's actually the Dark.
It's when he comes back?
They do the Dark Knight. Yeah, they do the Dark Knight Returns cover, but it's Darkwing Duck like in shade with the lightning, and it's him like coming out of retirement. It's so good. Too much of a tangent, but yes.
All of you fans at WonderCon who told me that you want to meet Taliesin because you love him and think he's interesting.
Right.
I agree. I want to meet Taliesin because I think he's interesting.
I have a
I love you
copy of
so
Darkwing.
much.
But
Oh, you're so
There we
right.
are.
Oh my God!
Wow!
On it.
Just
You're
doing it,
the
bro.
best.
how are you? Yeah, this is
You're
amazing.
the best. You're
Look
the
at that.
best.
Salute to Zach.
I'm gonna
Such a
stop
good book.
sending you pictures.
Such a good book. But like, I'm talking about like these big event runs and like how they kind of no longer it's kind of this weird internal. We get these micro ones that are just like 10 characters at a time that are only within certain books and
Or even micro where like there's going to be a couple issues that Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen are just going to like cross into each other's
Hang out.
books and not any other books. Like
and it's one of those things where like where a big event book may get you into X-Men. I've always found that the issues of X-Men that I really like are any time that they're playing sports.
The baseball games?
God bless
baseball
Chris
game,
Like the
Pratt.
basketball
volleyball
game.
at the pool,
Right.
Yeah.
Iceman at the pool. Like they can do like 7 panels of Iceman being a jerk at the pool. I will.
Like, what was that X-Men book where they were like, they were playing basketball at the very beginning, and they were like, no powers, but then like they all start using their powers, and they're like, I thought we said no powers.
That's
totally
every
remember
X-Men
that.
book. Every
And
good
like
X-Men
David's
ever.
like spinning the ball on his fingers, and I'm just like, go Gambit, yeah, charge that ball.
I don't know
It's
that's
a-
happened a few times.
It happens a lot,
storytelling
yeah.
we strongly associate with Chris Claremont, who wrote the X books for 16 years.
We'll get to that.
Applause.
Yeah.
By the way, that's
Thank you,
Chris
because
Claremont applauding himself.
Yeah,
he's off camera right
he's
now.
Guys,
Yeah.
I would freak out.
Yeah, so would I. So would I.
But yeah, so we strongly associate because he sort of like would strike a balance between getting involved in giant crazy world-ending shenanigans and like going to the mall.
Right.
And so the character development that he was able to sneak into both of those was so excellent that like we now like to talk about like the X-Men playing baseball sort of refers to
Gets me too.
finding ways to, I know,
It's
right?
like, no, it's
Felt that.
opening. It's
Felt
opening
that.
so
I'm good.
much.
Just don't do that. Please, keep going, please. I'm trying to
Yeah.
focus on you, and he's folding books. What are you doing over there?
So
No,
that
stop,
it's not
stop.
opening so
You're
much.
good. You're good.
I'm pretending I can't see it.
Go ahead.
I like
You
my
were saying-
comics.
I have to,
to
when
be
we buy
world
collections
open.
from people and we're like, what happened to this book? It's
And
someone
they're like, what do you mean? Like, why are you chewing
Yeah.
on a comic book? What are you doing?
I'm not a goat.
X-Men playing baseball is sort of a shorthand for finding ways to sneak like ordinary human moments in. And the truth is that almost always partway through that baseball game, aliens will attack. Of
course.
Sure.
But you still
Brood.
get like all that.
Oh,
You still get all that fun and like interaction in. Which ideally is something you can do with these big crossover events, is find quiet moments in between the action where characters who don't normally hang out get a chance to like respond to events to things together. Oh my god.
There we
Zach.
are. God, you're on point.
Jesus
You're on
Christ.
point today. What is with this?
Oh
To
god.
Gambit's natural agility, how can we tell if he's using them or not?
See, we're already doing like a meta commentary on the like powers. That's amazing.
It's
Yeah.
so good.
Love it.
Well, oh God, my
Speaking of
brain
terrible
just-
90s stuff, one of my first
Please.
events, like, and we can go with either of these we want, but I don't know which of these I actually found first, but one, Age of Apocalypse, which is
That's a whole
a
episode.
whole
Another
model of
pull them into
storytelling.
a world where they're not going to affect anything and then push them back out.
but stop the regular books and replace them with something for a period of time.
Very
it was
much
the
like
first
what-
one I knew of that ever did that. Since when I was reading.
And that's like what they did with Hickman's Secret Wars and all that stuff that just happened a couple years ago.
And then if we want to talk total like bonker shenanigans that get kids real excited about comics, Marvel versus DC.
Oh yeah.
Ultimate crossover.
Where they let
The
people
crossover and
vote
all
on
crossover.
who would win the different
Yeah.
fights, and the whole book was nonsense, but it was extremely
It was
effective.
such
at,
And then
nonsense.
Jail
making a
Avengers
kid
came out later.
love-
Well, and then they.
See, that was a great story though.
Yeah.
That was like the
Funny, can I have a JLA moment?
Oh
Yeah.
man,
So
please.
I happen to know George Perez, and actually I know Busick as well. And so, but I know George, but I don't know Busick. So as you well know, Superman's weakness is magic. So I was reading,
on Kryptonite.
but I'm saying, but
especially,
magic.
right?
So I'm
can
reading
magic
it,
him.
and I'm like, yeah, Thor versus Superman, and Superman caught Thor's hammer, and I went, whoa.
No,
I had a complete.
not cool.
I'm like, no,
Not cool.
This goes again. No. So I went up to George and I go, George, why? For who? He caught his hammer. No.
Oh, I have a theory. I have a theory.
No.
But keep going. I have a theory.
Oh, wait, no. I want to hear your theory
Yeah,
before
yeah,
I
yeah,
reveal
before
the
I-
truth
My
of it.
theory, because we had a 3-month-long debate between who would win, Superman or Thor, at my comic book store when I was a kid. Like 3 months of Wednesdays were all Superman versus Thor.
Love it.
Superman is worthy. So he can use the power of Thor. He can actually use the hammer because he's worthy to wield the hammer of Thor.
I like that.
Because Wonder Woman eventually picks it up, doesn't she? In that event.
I believe so, but
She
it's
also
being
picked it up
swung
once and swung it.
at him.
Yeah, but yeah.
It's being swung at him. I love what you're saying. It's being swung at him.
Okay.
By another person who, by the way, is worthy.
Yes, and probably comparably strong.
So what did he say?
I thought it was cool, and I drew it that way.
Comics. The ultimate.
I was like, thank you. I'm like, no!
That's fair. I'll allow it.
Zach, you're amazing.
I was like, what?
Oh, okay, never mind. Superman said go up to 11, which means he's no longer worthy. Never mind. He's no longer worthy. That's a
Yeah,
terrible
but
reference.
yeah, he caught. I was like, how, George, how? And he was like, I thought it was cool, and I was like, I can't argue with that.
There's no argument. And by
It
the
was
way,
probably
I do.
technically the first Wonder Woman comic I ever read, because I was like, as
Really?
an ex-kid, I was heavily invested, but like. The X-Men Storm confrontation was so good. Like, it made
good.
lifelong fans of both of those characters. I mean, I was already like a Storm stan, I think we might say. But the
Brought
like
you into the Wonder Woman fold, huh?
yeah. I mean,
Wonderful.
we all
And that's
know
why
it's
they do it.
pop culture,
That's
but-
why they do
And
these
then
crazy
why they
things,
do it,
kids.
yeah.
And then they led into Amalgam where they mushed all
Right.
the characters
Yeah.
together. And
What was
it
it? Doctor Strange, Fate, Dark
Doctor
Claw.
Strange.
Dark Claw.
Fate.
Yeah, Doctor Strange.
Oh.
At the end of this four-parter, where they matched up Marvel and DC heroes and
The
let
original
you
one?
vote on
The original one.
Yeah.
and let you vote on who would win in the various matchups. The conclusion of that was because that led to Amalgam, right? Not J-Lo Avengers.
Amalgam?
Yeah, that led to the
that led to-
See,
So,
this
yeah.
is a thing where I've said Amalgam since I read those comics as a tiny kid, and that's not what it's called.
No.
Amalgam.
I
Once again.
I only give Mercer problems for mispronouncing things. I don't give any other human being.
So they made a line of comics temporarily that was like all the DC and Marvel characters
Spider-Boy?
squished
Remember
together.
Spider-Boy?
Spider-Boy.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Wow,
Well,
that's speed.
That's the
DC
verses.
versus.
That's
That's
DC
the
versus.
versus.
Yep, this is what set it off.
Was it Wolverine
Set
Lobo?
off
I
the
thought it was
thing.
Wolverine Batman. No, it was
It's the
Captain America
90s.
Batman. That's right.
It's always Captain America, Batman.
I was trying to remember who fought who.
Wait, who did Shazam fight? Zach, can you go back to that real quick? I want to know, like,
Who did
is he fighting? Is that Maverick?
No,
Who is
that's
that?
Thor in his bad 90s.
that's the
worst Thor.
Eric
No,
Masterson?
no,
Or just
that's
regular-
not Thunderstrike. It's just one of
No,
like
that's
one of the
that's a
Thors.
terrible
Okay.
Thor costume.
Because
Is what
there's
that is.
Aquaman and Flash. So Flash
Look at
versus
those.
Quicksilver. That makes sense.
He
But
looks
wait,
like
they
a
have.
He-Man character.
I was so Team Jubilee in that matchup. And
Jubilee versus Robin, and then
Well, the
Superman
Jubilee
versus-
Robin, then they had a thing. They were like kind of like dating for a while, which I really liked. Like they were actually hopping between universes
They've
to like
got
go on
Superman
dates.
versus Hulk there.
Yeah.
So like what like?
Yeah.
They must have just like I think that probably
Strongest,
there's-
who's the strongest?
Composition doesn't necessarily one-to-one
Namor
here.
versus Aquaman. That makes sense.
And then the faces
Flash
of the
Quicksilver.
90s,
The
Lobo and
90s.
Wolverine.
Oh, Lobo. Oh, Lobo.
What- it was Super Patriot, right? That was the Captain America's.
Yes, Super Patriot,
Superman.
yep.
So I
Super
was already a
Patriot,
yeah.
Generation X kid, so I had no idea what Dial H for Hero was, but I believe that was what got mashed up with it was
Wait,
one of
really?
it was a Dial something.
Okay, just because this is the Wednesday Club, please turn to the camera and explain Dial H for Hero. Because
Oh,
these
boy.
people need to know what you're talking
They
about.
know because they've seen Ben 10. Which
good.
turns out you
So
can
wait.
get away with a lot when nobody remembers Dial H for Hero.
I've never seen Ben 10, so describe it to me.
Dial H for Hero is a kid? Like, how old is he? He's got a magic belt, and he can turn the dial on it,
Like
and
an old
he gets
phone dial.
different
Yeah.
powers, like an old rotary phone dial. And he can turn it to get different powers as he needs them.
But how what does he have to turn it a special way?
No, I don't know.
He has to spell out hero. H-E-R-O.
Yes!
You have to spell out hero to get the superpowers.
Dial H for Hero. Yeah,
And you don't
yeah.
know what powers you're going to get. And there's other things that you can dial into it, make other things happen. Like you can become a villain by dialing evil. Dial
I
E
did
for
not
evil.
even know that.
Is
and
a
that's
thing, and then you
amazing.
get supervillain powers if you dial E for evil.
I'm
The
gonna try
dial,
to
the
look up
magic
what the-
dial. Oh, it's so dumb. I
So
love
that-
it. It's the
well,
best.
But that's
Oh
kind
my
of like a
God.
similar power set to what like Legion would have in a lot of ways, where he's like he has
it's a bit
access
of the
to
rotunda.
so many.
There's a lot of people whose power sets are like various, and
Right,
the
can
method
rotate.
of
What do we
accessing
need?
them is what makes them like
Like
interesting.
Goose from Galaxy Rangers.
What is Galaxy Rangers?
Oh my god! Wait! Oh my god!
went
Oh
there.
my god! Oh my
I
god!
went there. Uh-huh.
Oh, that's hurting.
Do I have to Google this?
Oh, that's hurting.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Goose
Oh, bring that up.
Galaxy
We are getting weird today.
Rangers.
Well, events.
As opposed to normally?
Oh, I know. Oh my god.
Oh, look at his hair!
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
I've never heard of
It's a. Was there
Just a
comics
cartoon.
just
I
a
don't think it was-
cartoon?
I don't think it went to.
And it was just for toys, if I recall, right?
Yeah.
Oh my god! And
These
they were
are the adventures of the Galaxy,
Galaxy
Rangers.
with like the cowboy. Oh my god!
Oh,
80s
man.
toys were a weird.
Like
reality.
Infomorphic Powers is like my favorite power set, and the first time we saw them was Goose. That I remember seeing them was Goose from Galaxy Rangers.
Nice.
I remember there's a villain in DC who had the every power, which was one of my favorite
Yeah,
villains. Was the Quiz. The Quiz was a Japanese schoolgirl. She was a member of the Legion of the Brotherhood of Dada.
Ah.
And the Quiz, she was a Japanese schoolgirl, except of course that she was also like really germphobic. So her costume was a fully sealed hermetic suit that was bright green, covered in question marks with a rebreather. So you never actually saw her face or her body. She's just a giant green bag. And her power was every superpower you couldn't think of. And if you said a power out loud, she'd lose it. But if you hadn't said it out loud, she still had it.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Whoa.
I have not gotten that far, and that's amazing. And it's
Ah.
very interesting, like, as connects to one of my faves, Nico from Runaways. has the like I can only
Oh,
use
yeah,
this
use
power
spell
once.
once. Nico with the
Well,
magic
she
wand.
says she says it with the words, but she has to, and she's been learning different languages so she can
Which
utilize
is a
the power
fantastic cheat.
What a great cheat
She's been
around that.
memorizing
Great
heal
cheat,
in
yeah.
different languages. Like,
Oh, so good.
Nico will be coming to TV, I assume, too, because I think we're getting a Runaways show.
Yeah. No, she is. She was cast. I can't
great.
remember who it is, but the Runaways on Hulu. And speaking of TV, just a quick plug: Squirrel Girl on the new Warriors.
We'll see. We'll see. Too early.
Today.
Too early. We'll
Did
see.
you not
We'll
hear it?
see.
No!
yes! Coming to
Yeah.
Freeform, formerly known as ABC Family.
Where
Same
Cloak and
network
Dagger
Cloak and
is.
Dagger is. They had said there was this announcement about like a new Warriors show a while back, and we were all like, what is that? That might be a comedy thing. And now they're like, let's go with this Squirrel Girl and the new Warriors.
I'm about to do some furious interneting when the show is over.
Yes!
There will be
Furious
some movie
interneting.
Yeah, yeah. They don't have any of the other cast announced.
It was in X Patrol. There we go. This was my introduction. I love Husk from Generation X, and she
Yes.
became Dial Husk
Dial H.
Nice.
in X
Oh
Patrol,
my
which
God,
was
yeah.
Isn't Husk Sam
Teen
Guthrie's
Titans.
little sister?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow, we're getting deep. A lot of the X-Men are related because since they're mutants, a lot of the family
They
members
come from
also
the same
get
family,
powers.
yeah.
So Cannonball, who's like now a bigwig, he's been on the Avengers and everything. Sam has a little sister
one of the founding New Mutants.
whose power Husk is. She's called Husk, and her power she tears her skin off.
I promise
and
this
has
is not
superpowers.
important unless you're literally having a conversation with me.
Yeah.
I love Husk.
Or I mean, Jason Aaron's Wolverine in the X-Men run. She gets like a real bad deal in that run, but it's fun
Yeah.
to read. Like
Jason
it goes
Aaron's
a little nuts.
Wolverine and the X-Men is that's like the way comic books are supposed to be. Like
every poor reader who's now our reading list this week is going to be so
yeah,
scary.
we apologize.
Half a ring circus says we best be getting Gert. Oh, we are. They have cast her and
Yeah.
like so.
What? What's
Full
Best Be
disclosure,
What?
she's
This is for Runaways.
Gert from the Runaways. Like she's. I loved to imagine that we'd sort of have a stockier Gert, but like as soon as I saw the picture of this girl, I was like, you're
Yeah,
perfect.
perfect. Yeah.
Welcome to the Marvel universe. I'm
Hope
excited.
you can survive the experience.
Yeah.
The Runaways was was such an interesting run of books that the Runaway it was Runaways.
It's like mid 2000s attempts to like there were a couple of great teen books that came out of that time.
Let's get some teenagers reading comic books, and that was a big win. I thought.
All right, so let's
Yeah,
get back
right.
on the events.
Ooh, yeah.
Nice little.
From Galaxy
London,
Rangers, which sent me
right.
down a Google hole, which I'm gonna blame for this.
At least
so
you can get it on
what-
Wikipedia. Would have been worse.
What are some events that like misfired or didn't work or like kind of missed the mark? Like, do you guys have any in mind?
Well, I will preface this with every book is somebody's favorite.
Yeah, your mileage
Yes.
will vary.
Which is just, I mean, like you breathe deep in. Like I have friends who I deeply respect who occasionally read books, and I'm like, I don't understand what is wrong with you. What did your parents do to you?
How
I
can you
am
find
gonna do
enjoyment
kind
in
of
such?
the opposite on this one, which is one that like I've heard from other folks that it didn't work for a lot of people, but for me,
Didn't
my
work for you.
first DC event that I got to experience live, which was right when I was getting into like because I'd read little bits and pieces here and there growing up, but I was mostly Marvel, and when I started working in the shop years ago,
I'm
and I was
hoping
like,
it's gonna be what it is.
I don't know.
Oh,
if you're
carry
gonna-
on.
I was like, I gotta get into DC, and they had a big story coming up, and it was Blackest Night. Not
I
like
Blackest Night.
I'm
and
not
I-
a huge fan of Blackest Night. I will admit.
so for a lot of people, like it wasn't their
But
favorite.
then again, if you
for
think about it,
me-
you went in with all of your previous DC associations, whereas for her it was an introduction, which is an interesting point because if you don't know the characters beforehand, like
So the disadvantage is I wouldn't necessarily know if someone was being written inconsistently.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did get was this crazy, like, so Blackest Night was a story in the DC universe where a bunch of people basically came back from the dead, especially the dead, like, former superheroes and loved ones of superheroes, which in some ways you would think would make it really intimidating and overwhelming for a new reader. Except for me, it was perfect because they kept explaining who everyone was. Because in order to explain, like, this was exactly when they were bringing Barry Allen back to life, and he'd been gone for 25 years, so they would just take him around the universe explaining everything that had changed. And I'm like the only person our age who bonded really hard to Barry Allen because he was learning the DC universe at the exact time I was. Where they were sort of like I knew all these basics.
Was that in the main book, or was that like
See, this is the other thing. I was working at a shop, so it was a lot less expensive for me to follow all the tie-ins than for other people. And that was one of the drawbacks of the book is like there were a million things that tied
There were
into
so
it,
many
and I
tie-ins,
think
yeah.
I read all of them.
There were a million tie-ins.
There were so many.
But that's like, it's interesting because, like you said, that's one of the powers of the event is that it brings in new readers and introduces new characters and things like that.
So it would be like there was a random issue of Suicide Squad, a book which hadn't been published for years, but they were like, if the theme of our event is things coming back from the dead, they did about 6 of these that were like books that had been canceled years ago that had one issue, and their gimmick was that they would number it as if it had continued. So I think I
Interesting.
think maybe Catwoman didn't have a book at the time, and they brought it back for one issue for that. Suicide Squad they brought back for one issue because Gail Simone was writing Secret Six, and they made that a crossover.
Nice.
So anyway, that's another way of
Wow.
structuring. There was a main Black as Night book, and then there were the most important ones, which were the tie-in issues of Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps. And then from there out, you had like mini-series and tie-ins, and he found Suicide Squad.
Oh.
Well done.
I'll actually say
Oh,
it was.
she co-wrote it with Ostrander, the creator. That
that
probably
makes
didn't
sense.
register for me at the time because I was not yet super familiar with him. But
I'll say it was less the time. It was less the story arc itself that bothered me, and more the like the widespread implications of what was like left over afterward. But like which is often
what? Please explain.
well, which is often I felt and again this is we're purely opinionating at this point that it sort of left a bit of a. I felt that the DC was doing a lot of things at that time where like they would keep doing these big, often very interesting stories that would just leave a bigger like the notion. It's the campsite rule. So you go and you camp at a campsite and you leave it cleaner than you found it. And I felt like they kept littering, like they would do these big events and just sort of like the ground is now messier than it was, and they just kept making things more kind of. And I thought it was it was a good read, I will admit.
But see, this is the thing we talked about last week, where you have these long-term consequences.
No.
What? Which one?
The new one.
well,
The
no.
new one, yeah.
I am gonna. Somebody in chat, Kobaka says, "What was that one event that everyone got a hammer like Thor's, but it was evil? It was Fear itself."
Fear itself.
Another very divisive one, but that I thought was a pretty good read.
It was
okay.
It was pretty solid. It had some good stuff. I wanted action figures that I didn't get.
Such as?
I wanted
A lack
all
of
the
toys is the problem.
they did,
Everybody had some
Tron
Asgardian
costumes.
weapons.
Yeah, so they all got
Wait, was it
Asgardian.
Tron costumes or was there any?
Well, they got the Asgardian weapons, but they also got like Tron style Asgardian suits. So,
Everybody
like,
got makeovers with their evil powers.
Right.
Yeah, and
Oh,
it was
that's
pretty.
right.
It was
Like,
pretty cool.
Wasn't it like Colossus became Juggernaut? He,
Yeah.
like,
That
got,
had
like-
recently
that happened
happened
already.
in the
Too,
X-Men
yeah.
books, but yeah, he got a hammer.
Where did that happen in the X-Men books? Was
It
that
was right
Wait,
at
well,
the
yeah,
end
Juggernaut
of
got his
the
own hammer.
uncanny renumbering.
Juggernaut got his own hammer.
Yeah,
It wasn't Colossus Juggernaut. It
Oh,
was Juggernaut
yeah?
who had a hammer.
Oh,
Yeah.
was it? So it was Colossus with
with the
powers of
with
Juggernaut going up against hammer-wielding former
Yeah.
Juggernaut?
No,
Who?
no.
They destroyed Vegas.
They
Who
weren't.
was he fighting?
They weren't together. I don't think. I think
They
Colossus was just
destroyed
Colossus,
Vegas.
and I think Juggernaut was just Juggernaut with a hammer.
It's a bit of wait. Here we are. We have our
Okay, the worthy, yeah. See, Juggernaut just got his own hammer. I don't think he's.
Okay, 'cause
is he
he's
Colossus?
all-
Well, you can't tell because he's all covered up.
he's all. But
I remember
you
all-
can
yeah.
see the
Juggernaut.
Tronny thing I was talking
We
about.
literally all read this and we can't remember.
Yeah.
This is part of the
Because
problem.
there's a lot of books.
Although a lot of good stuff with Loki happened in that, and this led to one of
Yeah.
my favorite Loki books, which I thought was
Which
really
was?
cool. Which was the it was
Young Avengers? Or?
no, it was
His run and Journey into Mystery?
Journey to Mystery, which was thank
That
you.
came out of this?
That came out of
Yeah.
that. Well, I mean, part of it, he like it didn't come out of it necessarily. It came
It
out
was
of
associated.
the. Yeah, it was his tie-in really defined him as a character
Yeah.
in the Marvel universe. And I like the way that they defined Kid Loki as kind of Kid Loki is almost like
There was a period of time where Loki was a kid.
and it was great.
It
And a
happened as a
woman. He was
result
also
of
a
the
woman.
And he's a
yeah.
woman, yeah.
We may do a
It
Loki
came as
episode.
the result of the Siege giant crossover event.
Oh, Siege! I forgot about that.
Marvel has
There's
had,
been
like-
so many.
so many.
Yeah, Marvel's
No.
had basically at least one giant one a year since the first Civil War in the mid 2000s, and it's
Yeah.
one of those like
There's
they've
been
been
a
some
lot.
of the highlights of the Marvel universe, and it's also getting to be a lot.
Well, I would actually go so far as back to say 04 had Disassembled, 05 had House of M, Annihilation came in 06, as well as Civil War, followed by Annihilation, the Annihilation wave. What was the Annihilation Conquest?
Annihilation
Yes.
Conquest.
The next year.
that was just the Marvel Cosmic books.
World War Hulk happened that same year. Messiah Complex happened that same
That was
year.
an
Secret
X-Men
Invasion
story.
was 08. Marvel's been doing like giant crossover stuff since 2004.
Pretty much
yeah,
solid.
basically
Like,
without
solidly.
pause.
No wonder you're like, which events worked and which didn't. I'm like,
The ones you don't remember.
I know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of all just kind of.
I'm one of the few people who really liked Morrison's last big thing at DC.
Final Crisis?
Final Crisis.
We had a question about that in chat. Just what did you think of Final Crisis?
I will say it's a better read as a book than it is as single issues. It introduced like so many things Morrison did. He threw a lot of things onto the playing field that no one ever picked up that I thought were really cool. Like the Japanese superheroes that never really got looked at again, which kind of broke my heart. Right. His cool Mr. Miracle, his kind of dark take on Kirby, and he really, I thought he brought an interesting way to modernize the New Gods.
There's a set of DC characters called the New Gods that we'll probably get into specifically at one point. But
we should get into the whole Kirby, that whole Kirby universe.
I thought he brought the
Kirbyverse.
Yeah, the DC Cosmic, I guess is what you'd call it. But like,
yeah.
I thought he brought a lot, and I think that it's one of those books where if you're a fan of Kirby and that you got that he was doing a Kirby-style story where things moved really quickly and the space between panels was really short and the dialogue was really operatic, that it was such a good love letter to Kirby that like I don't know how that book would read to somebody who wasn't already a Kirby fan. I'll also say it's one of my favorite Black Lightning books ever. Was the Black Lightning single issue where he's trying to get the Tattooed Man and his family out of like the destroyed Gotham.
Ink?
Which?
Sorry, there was a Final Crisis tie-in book called Ink, and I don't know if there's...
No, I don't know. It was, but it was Black Lightning basically like driving a school bus with the Tattooed Man and his family because they need the Tattooed Man to fight the dark side.
Nice.
And the Tattooed Man's just being a jerk, and it ends up with like everything going horribly wrong, and I just remember it ends with them putting one of like the dark side helmets on Black Lightning and like just basically him going evil and just starting to like burn books. It was so dark. It was such a dark, sad, and it was like my heart just went snap.
Right.
So we have some love for Final Crisis in chat from M121 Akuma and JRC Roller, and then an interesting one. Like I just want to shout this out because this is another of those stories that I find is very divisive. I wasn't reading during 52, which was a weekly event at DC.
That's
a
what I
lot
was
of
bringing
people
up.
loved it, but Mommy Panda 35 says buying every issue of 52 is my worst memory of an event.
Yeah.
So for some people, like they loved it. It came out every week for an entire year.
And was that $2.99?
I don't
Probably.
remember.
So like $12 a
Probably.
month on top, like
That's
just for
a lot
that.
of money.
Yeah.
And the thing about like the 52 is it for me it was nice to get there weekly because I go in there weekly anyway. But it's just you know what the thing that really bothers me about events honestly is the rollout. Like the rollout is never.
We were talking about this.
Yeah,
earlier,
the rollout just never really comes through for me in a way that's cohesive and enables me to just like I have to start reading and thinking about okay, which book am I reading? Does this happen already? Is this after? Is it the way that the events roll out, and then obviously the ramifications afterwards? It just feels like at a certain point it kind of falls apart. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like there's never
especially
it's like,
towards the end.
Yeah, towards the end. Well, I'm just saying the end and then the aftermath is never really like. Solid. Like 52 is the aftermath of the book was the aftermath of what Final Crisis was it Final Crisis?
Flashpoint.
No, old 52.
52, the
That's right,
weekly book, came out of one of the other crises.
I think I got the list here.
Was it Infinite Crisis?
So Infinite Crisis, Countdown to Infinite Crisis, one shot. 1 year later,
Yeah.
52, which depicts the events that happened between Infinite Crisis and 1 year
There we
later.
go.
Yeah.
Then Countdown to Final Crisis, followed by Final Crisis.
Yeah, so that
30 minutes of research
It's
last
like
night.
Final Fantasy 15.
But that kind of
final
thing.
is used loosely.
What ends up happening is, as a reader, you know, especially me, I'm reading multiple books all the time. I kind of get, I'm like,
yeah.
You get baffled.
You get baffled,
So that's
confused.
there's 30, and then you.
Yeah, so I read all the countdown
You got
books.
40, yeah.
Yeah, and then I read New 52, and I was like, it just started to lose me. And then some of the stuff that came out of it,
They literally make flowcharts now.
You have to.
So
Have to.
that
And I'm like,
brings us
I just want to read books. I don't want to necessarily have
the
to flowchart.
title of this episode we borrowed from Jonathan Hickman,
Right.
who got really literal with this.
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah.
we might need to make a chart for how to read this.
Yeah.
And
Right, there is
actually
one, yeah.
made a flow chart when he did a Marvel crossover. Which,
Yeah.
it was an interesting thing as a retailer at that time, because I was torn between, like, thinking that was amazing and being like, people are so baffled by the existence of the
cast
chart
lists.
makes people
Yeah.
think that they can't
I remember
follow
those.
this. But it also is the only reason anyone can follow this.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
such a, like, can you find one of the flowcharts, the reading orders?
Yeah, Zach, if you could find that would be awesome.
That would be amazing
Of course
if
you
you
will.
could
But
find reading
order.
that's one of the things that Hickman, I actually really love, like the cast list.
Right.
It helps.
because like I just thought that was so fun to be like, oh, they're in this book, oh, they're in this book,
Right.
and a lot of times the picture of that character would come from inside the book,
Right.
So
yeah.
I would take a minute to memorize everything that was on the page and be like,
See, when they-
can't wait to find that picture of you because you look scared. I want to know why. Like,
Yeah.
it was like a weird preview for the character in that book. So.
But they were also squeezing too many faces on you. You weren't
Way
actually
too many.
introducing anybody. It was just.
So what's an event book that worked for you?
None.
Oh, there
No, there are many.
There are
Well,
many.
Secret Wars.
Secret Wars.
The first.
The first obviously worked for me.
Doesn't have to be modern. Doesn't have to be, you know.
Right, I'm sure. Well,
Oh yeah, here's a flowchart, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There it is. Yeah.
So this was.
Wow.
This was how Jonathan Hickman tackled the problem of coordinating a few different books.
Good God.
And part of it, like, I absolutely love. This was he tweeted something last week that cracked me up, where he said, after years of people telling me to read Doctor Who, or watch Doctor Who, I have finally found the thing that convinced me, because somebody sent him the timeline of River Song.
Oh yeah.
Because Jonathan Hickman loves crazy charts.
Right.
So this was his, like,
I love
for
it.
a few years, he was writing a couple different books, and they were associated together.
look
And
at
he
that.
would make
Yeah.
things like this to help simplify the process of reading his
understanding.
comics.
But they're sorry. It's,
So I love them, but also they're a problem, but I love it, but it's ridiculous.
But
Let's be
he's
honest.
like he dives full into the complexity and says, "No, they're complex. That's part of what makes them awesome. Here's a flowchart. Enjoy how awesome they are."
For those who don't know, by the way, Hickman is the guy who does this, and he is the like, it's the Lost of comic books, where it's like the more his complex story arcs actually.
They reward close
do.
reading.
I mean,
And
you're
especially
like-
his Fantastic Four, I liked sort of more than his Avengers Ultimately.
But
Yeah.
they all, yeah.
But like it was his Fantastic Four run was one of my very favorite things, and over the years, like it accumulated in this way that only that level of detail can really add up.
Right.
To.
Like,
Yeah, but in terms of, like I said, you'd have to list them because there's so many of them.
You want DC or Marvel?
I didn't read, honestly, DC. I'm not as much a DC guy.
Okay,
as
so
I
I'm
good.
gonna,
I
I'm
got
gonna,
DC
I'm gonna
books.
read some for you.
Okay.
Kree Skrull War, Avengers Defenders War, Contest of Champions, Secret Wars 2, Fall of the Mutants, Evolutionary War, Inferno, Extinction Agenda, Infinity Gauntlet, Rise of the Midnight Sun.
Gauntlet, obviously. Rise of the Midnight Suns I really enjoyed, actually.
yeah.
This
I did
is
enjoy that. You know what's funny? Because I really enjoyed it, but also it kind of it aggravated me a little bit at some of the, because one of the things I don't like about event books and crossovers and tie-ins is sometimes they don't write the character as the character is. They write the character as the character needs to be to fulfill the story.
Sure.
And that bugs me.
Yeah.
Like it's
Multiple
like it's
writers.
like yeah, it's like you know, that's just not in character
Yeah.
for. I mean, you know, and there's a few writers who are very guilty of that
Carol
quite a bit.
Danvers, Civil War 2.
Right?
Yeah.
So-
Yeah,
War
it's just like
two,
that just
I just-
doesn't. It's like I understand that you need the character to do that, but that doesn't read as true to the character I've been
Yeah.
reading. Especially when somebody else takes over a character that you've been reading their own, like an individual book. You read the individual book for a while, and then somebody else takes over to bring that character into an event, and in the event that character is nothing like the character you've been reading in the book.
It's
and you're
it's,
like,
it's that flavor of that thing that like it's like that home cooked meal that your mom's been making you for
Right.
20 years, and you find a restaurant that makes it, and you
Right.
taste it, and you're like, it's
not-
got the same name,
right. It's not the same thing.
possibly even most of the same ingredients, but there's just something that's
Yeah, so that's kind of one of the things that, I mean, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of event books.
I've got a few. I mean, like,
I like the idea.
sure. Here's one that I love, and this is actually one that I often.
We also only made it to the early 90s in that list.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, before I stop.
Do you want me to keep going?
Oh
No, we moved on. We can go back.
Oh, they can Google. Oh,
They
but
can. They can.
not that they should.
Tweet, Facebook, Instagram,
But
Tumblr me, whatever you want me to.
I thought Secret War, Marvel's
Whatever other-
Secret War, is a great introduction to comic books.
So you're talking about the singular?
Not singular, the Bendis book.
Comics love to refer to themselves, and it makes everything really confusing. And as a retailer, I get it, but guys, you have no idea how confusing you make life for your
Secret
readers.
War had no tie-ins. It had no connections. It was just a 6-issue miniseries. But what it did, it was Nick Fury, who everybody knows, grabbing
Old white Nick Fury, not new young black
old
Nick
white Nick Fury. Old
Well,
man,
not old, 'cause he
old
wasn't
man
old.
Fury. Oh,
Yeah.
well, it's
It was Infinity Formula. So it was
Infinity
visible
Formula
old.
white Nick Fury, not new.
Not new.
Infinity Formula descendant black.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Not new hotness.
Comics.
figures out the Shield figures out that the reason that we have all these supervillains running around in what are essentially, I love this, in like $1 million suits of armor with suit like Stilt Man.
Yeah, stealing $1,000 and hundreds of thousands.
Robbing banks for $200,000, where you're like, this doesn't seem to make any sense. Is that they figure out that the country that Doctor Doom used to rule at the time, Latveria, is funding supervillains as a form of terrorism in the United States. It basically, they're buying suits for supervillains to create chaos in the United States to undermine the American government. What a great idea! Yeah. And he wants to stop it, but like he's basically told we have to handle this very, very delicately because they have a new
books.
and a new. Well, he's told don't do anything.
Fury.
Fury. No, they tell him leave it alone.
Yeah.
Walk away. Don't do anything. So he basically gets 7 superheroes. One of his agents and 7 superheroes are like Spider-Man, Wolverine, Black Widow.
Captain America. Right?
No. Wait, was it Cap?
I've got to look.
No, I want to say Cap wasn't, but
Cap was there.
Was Cap there?
Cap was there.
And basically
I
says
don't think Cap makes it through unscathed, right?
no. Well, what happens is he says we're going to basically fly to this country and perform a black ops operation that we will never tell anybody about.
I was in a moral fight with
Luke
this book, but it was a good read.
Luke Cage, Daredevil,
God, that's right, Luke Cage was in it.
Spider-Man. It was like a weird group for the time.
The
More than
agent
that.
that Fury brought was a brand new character that they created named Daisy Johnson.
Daisy Johnson,
Side note.
her origin issue is
from
this.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
You may know from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then he mind wiped all of them so they wouldn't remember that they did it. So that he couldn't get caught.
But they
for
agreed
doing
to
this.
that.
They
agreed to it.
Well, did they?
I believe they did.
No, they didn't. They didn't
not agree with
I
because
remember finding the book interesting, but being in kind of a fight with it, and I think this is why.
and in fact, that's what kind of happened was that some of the supervillains, they eventually found out and they retaliated.
Yes.
And they didn't know why they were being retaliated against.
Right, yeah.
Which was then they found out that they had basically been.
But if they had
conned.
agreed to mind wiping or not, it would still be the same.
They would both, in both cases, they wouldn't know why the villains were attacking them, but
Yeah,
it's
it
kind
was-
of an important distinction.
There was a weird turn when they figured out that they
Who
had
else was
kind
in
of
there?
been used, like they'd been lied to and used, and sort of it was a big mess.
Well, I don't know. Well, I think they agreed to a mission. I don't think they knew
They
what
didn't
mission.
really know what they were
They
doing.
agreed to a mission where they would be mind wiped. I don't know if they knew what it was.
They did,
I think
and it was the end of Nick Fury as Nick Fury. Like that was his like I'm out because now I'm wanted by every government on the planet.
Yeah, I've kind of pissed everybody off.
Did it lead into Secret Warriors?
Yes, it did.
Which was one of my favorite books. Hickman, again, was one of the good
It
examples.
did. It was
Or was
how
it-
that was created. Because that was also when he discovered the too much inside baseball.
Nick
But
Fury gets sort of in trouble.
this book starts everything that the modern Marvel universe is. This is the beginning of new Nick Fury, which was and it's a great jumping on point if you want to read any of the Netflix books.
Right.
Any of the it introduces you to Daredevil, it introduces you into Jessica Jones, it
They
introduces
run
you
little
into
dossiers.
It's
Wait, Jones in there?
Captain
Well,
America,
Jessica
Spider-Man,
Jones?
Daredevil, Black Widow, Luke Cage,
Black Widow.
Wolverine, and Daisy.
Yeah, there was no Cap. Because
Wolverine.
Cap comes in
No,
and
Captain
just
America.
there was
Captain
Cap because he
America,
punches and then there were a couple tie-ins but they were light. Like there was a whole Jessica Jones thing Luke Cage gets attacked and there's
Jessica
a whole
Jones
issue of
lies,
Jessica
yeah.
trying to figure out what happened while literally Danny kidnaps his unconscious body and takes him away and oh it's great. It's good stuff.
The agents were brainwashed afterward. Nick Fury then informs the heroes that this is the last time they will see him, and that he hopes those involved in his plot will understand why he did was necessary. And then he just pieces up.
It was a good story. Me as a reader was like,
Goes to be the man on the wall.
It was also
he's been the
painted
man on
full time
wall.
being the man on
the
the wall.
entire
And then we see him
book was
again in
painted
Original
also,
Sin,
which is
yeah.
really fascinating. It had a
the
really
painted style
interesting
was
art
interesting.
style.
It, like,
Original Sin.
Yeah.
I
I'm
liked that
back and
one
forth
more.
on Original Sin.
I was the same.
There are things I love about it.
There are things. That's like I said. All these. The thing about event crossovers is why it's so difficult for me to decide whether I like them because there's so many things I like in them, but then there's so many things, like I said, about it, like especially like the execution and the fallout that just take away my enjoyment of it. You know what I mean? I'm like, yes, yeah, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like it's almost impossible to. It's kind of the nature of an event that it's almost impossible afterwards to continue that level of hype and enjoyment. Because it was an event,
Which is one of the things I liked about Secret Wars that I felt that it managed to contain
War
it.
singular.
right? 'Cause it was-
Secret War singular.
but it was. I mean,
contained
that's really more of a crossover than an event because it didn't.
Well, but the interesting
It
thing
led to events.
The interesting thing though is that it did in fact change everything.
Right.
Like it
And
was such a huge. And there's those beautiful covers. For Original Sin.
Yeah.
Oh, what
The
a
art
weird
on most
book.
of the stories we're talking about is generally excellent because
starts
they get
excellent.
like
Because because they get the best artists to do this because
yeah.
this is their big event that's going to get so many people pulled in.
And there's only so many people who can draw panel after panel of 100 people.
Yeah.
That's hard.
George Perez and nobody else.
Yeah.
Perez is king on that. He really is.
And my other weird little one that I like on the DC side, I love DC 1 Million. It is my little
never read
redheaded.
that
It is my
one.
redheaded stepchild of stupid. I love
I
it
love
so
you
much.
so much. Yeah.
The whole notion of it is what would DC Comics look like at their millionth issue, and so they hopped all the books forward to the millionth issue in the year like 8,943 with
like the
with the
855th
Justice League of our solar system. It was like the Universal Justice League, and each superhero had their own planet.
Nice.
You know what's funny? Speaking of that, some of the minutiae that's come out of the 52 and everything like that, like the alternate stuff for the Justice League and all this stuff, like some of that's been really enjoyable for me. You know?
JLA 1 Million.
Yeah, I remember.
Our Man.
Yeah,
Starman.
Some of that stuff's really like the Justice Society, and some of the, the Society of Superheroes. I think from Multiversity. I love them. I love the Multiversity.
Multiversity was amazing.
Love the Multiversity. But then again, once again, I don't read the DC books like religiously unless it's Nightwing.
You're not alone.
I love Nightwing. I love Nightwing.
Dude, it's cool.
Right?
We all
But I'm just
love-
like,
we all
it's just a
love
weird.
Nightwing.
It's just like, but I'm just like, I don't know why that particular character in general like speaks to me so much. But
That's really interesting. When did you get into Nightwing? Were you reading like?
years ago.
Was she one of your first?
Do we have the mamas and the papas? Can we just? No, we don't own that. Never mind.
No,
I was trying to give you flashback music.
I've been a Nightwing guy for a while. Like, I think I was reading some Batman, and then like
You discovered Nightwing?
Yeah.
Well, was it like his run as one of his 2 runs as Batman?
No,
or was it him in the Titans?
No,
or
it's Nightwing.
Back when he had his own like 150 issue series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that type
Blockbreaker,
series.
like that, like
Bloodhaven?
Bloodhaven.
Before Bloodhaven. Bloodhaven, I was into Nightwing when Bloodhaven happened. I don't remember when exactly my love for him coalesced, but
So, sorry.
Really
go
quick,
ahead.
for those of you who don't know, Nightwing is basically a graduated Robin of Batman who then kind of struck out to become his own superhero.
Dick Grayson, yeah.
Dick Grayson. Nightwing also, which I find really interesting, the name Nightwing comes from a
Yes,
superhero
Kryptonian.
from Krypton.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
Superman
Superman gave him the name.
It was like, there was this guy that I
Well, he
thought
was the
super
protector
cool.
for a little while, remember?
Yeah.
After he became, after Robin, he was the protector for a little bit. And then he switched and he became Nightwing.
Such
And,
an interesting
right,
character.
Yeah. And he had the wings, so go ahead.
Why do you like? What is it about Nightwing that is like Nightwing?
I just, well, first of all, martial art character, acrobatic character. Always love
Do you know
martial
martial
arts?
arts?
A little bit. I do a little kicking.
Can you give us an example? I'm just kidding.
Like,
right?
here, like, I need like a little
Yeah, in this framing, I can certainly. Okay, but so and then,
What if I
and
just
then
like went flying off screen?
Yeah.
Wow, he's fast.
but yeah, so that and then the whole, he came from the same place as Batman, but somehow because of the fact that Batman was there to guide him, he didn't end up in the same place as Batman. You know what I mean? Like, and the whole like the legacy. I love the legacy aspect of it. Of being the original Robin and going off and taking his own, but still being Bat friendly and a part of the Bat. I don't know. It's just it's.
It's like he recognizes the sins of the father and therefore does not commit them himself.
Right. And just like I said, the legacy of being a Batman derivative, but being his own, coming in his own world. It's just, I like that. And because he kind of, I guess we kind of grew up with Nightwing. You know what I mean? Like when he was, he was the protector when I think he was the protector, like when I first discovered him, he was the protector. And then he became Nightwing. And I was like, oh, he's kind of doing his own thing. And then he's, all the heroes respect him. I don't know why. This has nothing to do with
When
crossovers.
was the
Why are we still on
protector
him?
phase? Was it before or after like New Teen Titans Nightwing?
Oh gosh.
Like 80s Perez, Wolfman.
It was
costume.
definitely Perez Wolfman.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was like
'Cause
that's
it was
Titans.
Titan. It was in the Titans arena because he was the protector in the Titans.
Okay.
But then he became Nightwing also in the Titans.
Yeah.
Titans again, just because now I'm playing you now. Titans was like the big teen book for DC. It was like it was all the
Yeah, it was all the sidekicks
sidekick,
at the
quote,
time:
unquote.
Robin, Speedy, Kid Flash,
Aqualad,
Aqualad.
Lad. I love anything buddy with the name Lad. there.
all those characters.
They had like in the 60s it was just the kid sidekicks, and then in the 80s they brought the book back and they would call them the New Teen Titans, and it was sort of the definitive teen book of the early
Beast
80s,
Boy,
dueling with
then it became
X-Men
Beast
for
Boy
years.
and Cyborg.
And eventually
and,
becoming like the 17 to 20-year-olds. Like
Right.
they started stop being the kids and
then
eventually
they became the Titans.
the Titans.
Yeah. So where were we before we went off of that? Nightwing
Oh,
tangent?
I've got only
We're
knows,
the Wednesday Club.
We're the Wednesday Club. We're on the internet and the
A
internet.
lot of Yeah, Dark Ivan says Nightwing got to grow up. Few characters get that.
Yeah.
A lot of love for Nightwing's butt.
There's a
Nightwing's
lot of
butt.
One of
Nightwing's
the most
butt is a
famous
huge
butts
thing.
in comics.
It's a very
It's
famous
It's a
butt.
good butt. It's a nice butt.
It's
I
partly
have to
this
admit.
is like this is a real thing that is also a joke in comic book fandom where we sort of like I would say that if I had to like the origin of love for Nightwing's butt is partly just that like sometimes people draw his butt and it looks nice, and partly that like girls, especially straight girls who are into comics, after years of seeing every female character have like dumb costumes and be way over sexualized, like it becomes this like if you turn it around for once, like people are like, there we go, one for us.
Well, no, and
it's
he was definitely he got passed around a bit in the DCU, but like all the way we're like, yeah, I've been there, done that. Yeah. Oh, Nightwing. Oh.
So this initial like the fact that he was like he would a character that you might crush on
There you go.
became exactly like, now it's sort of a thing that
Yeah.
like Nightwing's butt is like somebody said that it's a great way to
keep
get
zooming.
people into comics, not even joking, and it's one of this like joke not joke things about like the hotness of Nightwing, because it just
We all aspire to have Nightwing's butt.
Well, I have some friends who are very into Nightwing. Like, there's a lot of people who are like that is a character who they're really into.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm so.
I loved
bonded
his I loved his stint as Batman with Damian.
I read that. Yeah.
I thought it was such an interesting take having a Batman who wasn't like
Like a shiny,
sad.
happier Batman.
It was a very shiny, happy Batman, and then an angry little Robin, which was really fun.
That's fine. We were seriously on something before.
We
Wars.
were on Secret Wars.
Oh, yeah. Well, so we were on the.
Hickman Secret Wars. So events a lot of times can be used, and we've already said this, but a lot of times the event is used to coalesce the entirety
I'm going
of
to
the
throw in one
universe.
final shout out
Sure.
because Undercover Goth, which is a great name, points out that that's also what led to the Hawkeye Initiative, which if you haven't Googled it, you should. Because
Oh, yes, that's a
it
thing.
makes me laugh. Okay, go.
Like Crisis on Infinite Earths, reset the timeline.
Right.
Then time. What was it? The Green Lantern one. The time 0 Hour.
0 Hour.
That was supposed to take the future and the past and everything and put that into one time line for DC.
Oh, we haven't talked
Because
about
Zero
like
Hour
alternative
was
ones
like
like Kingdom
Legion,
Come.
right? Yeah.
And
Oh,
Dark Knight,
yeah, that is-
Kingdom Come is a huge event that was like
That's a huge
completely
event, but it's completely
separately
separate from.
Yes, that's. I mean,
continuity,
so,
yeah.
That's
so
our other
where do we
option.
put
Take
those?
people out of the universe entirely, by which we mean just
With
do
different
like a
characters,
big,
different universe, different everything.
a big
Just its
what
own thing.
if or a
Right.
big
Would we call that like an
Elseworld
Elseworld?
story.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Those are the terms
It's an
for each of
Elseworld,
them.
Or a what if you Marvel, what if
DC
DC
Elseworld.
Yeah.
Similar concept of like
Has Marvel done any Kingdom Come style?
Oh yeah.
What was the?
they did Earth X.
Wait, one with Alex
yeah.
Ross. Alex
Yeah.
Ross did Earth.
Oh,
X.
Earth
Art,
X.
yeah.
Actually, that was like a direct.
That was like
And then
a
there
We're
was
gonna
also-
do a Kingdom Come.
And then there was also like the Legends, where it was like
That's what
the,
it's more, yeah.
photographers and everything, right? Like
Marvels.
Marvels.
Actually, Marvels was
that's right.
first.
Yeah.
Marvels was.
But that was a
first.
retrospective. That wasn't a forward. That wasn't a future. That was a.
I'm
that
talking.
that
I'm,
wasn't
talk-
like
well,
an
no, I'm just
Elseworld,
talking
yeah,
about. I'm talking about like a Kingdom Come style alternate, because Earth X was kind
well,
of Kingdom Come,
here,
but didn't really.
Here's a weird one.
Kingdom Come yet.
Do the Ultimate books count?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll go with
Ultimate.
that.
Do you want to turn
So
the
the
camera and
Ultimate books
explain
is in the what was that in the 2000s, early 2000s, late 90s?
That was
2001,
yeah.
2001. What Marvel decided to do was do a separate line of rebooted books for the younger reader to kind of introduce them to the Marvel universe in a way that would enable them to be on the ground floor of the stories of all the characters,
And
but
in the modern,
still
modern era.
Yeah.
in the modern era, but still leave the traditional readers with their books and allow these new books to be either picked up by the traditional readers who had fallen off and want to get back into the books, or but to give new people a chance to play with and interpret those characters. Some of the ultimate interpretations were actually pretty interesting.
Really cool.
Yeah, some of them were
Yeah,
very
really
interesting.
cool.
Yeah.
I'm a reader
'Cause they
who
were
skipped
a lot
it
different.
entirely, and now it's sort of like, oh, it turns out those books were important.
Yeah, well, there was some very interesting like alterations on how they did things. That's actually where we got Black Nick Fury.
Yep.
Like
And
Fury
Miles
came
Morales.
from Miles Morales, of course, came from. But Miles Morales was like there were already some kind of like it was already incestuous by the time Miles Morales even came around.
Well, the notion they knew that Ultimates was eventually they realized that they were kind of getting into the same point with Ultimates that they were with the normal books,
Right.
which is this is now becoming a convoluted mess.
Right.
So they were like, well, what would it look like to kill off Peter Parker? Which is a really
Yeah.
interesting story,
Yeah,
but
it
like
is.
really do it. And
Right.
they really did it, and that's where Miles came from. Was such a great.
But then Peter kind of came back as a cloney type thing.
They
but
did a
wasn't-
little bit of
that
it.
was a little weird.
That was a little
cloney
weird.
stuff.
That wasn't a real. That was like a weird.
And I'm really disappointed that they never did anything like the Ben Reilly. Like they did Miles Morales, but the Ben Reilly of the Ultimate Universe was black.
Yeah.
I'm like, why didn't they just use Ben Reilly? You know, you could have just done something. You actually had a Ben Reilly.
Do we
So,
need
in
to
the
save
regular
Ben Reilly?
universe-
Oh, Ben Reilly.
I
are we really
love
doing-
Ben Reilly.
I have-
I love him. I love him. I love him.
the hoodie. I love
I
the hoodie.
love him. The
I love
hoodie.
the hoodie.
The hoodie.
Oh,
I
God.
love Ben Reilly.
No
I
one's
don't
no
care.
one's
So
taking
this
that
is
away from
basically
you.
a stunt that worked for you was Ben Reilly Spider-Man.
So wait, are you all about the Clone Saga then?
See, once again, love the idea. It started going off. I was like, yeah, Clone Saga, this is still going on, still happening, still going. Okay, we're still.
man, I think
One of the
Yeah,
most
we
famous
love
like
Clone
train
Saga.
wrecks in
God.
comics history was
Yeah.
the number of people burned by the 1990s Clone Saga.
Sure.
Not even the first Clone Saga, but when you hear Clone Saga, this is the one they're talking about.
I love Ben's costume in the most 90s way
Oh my
possible.
God, it
It's
was
so
amazing.
It's so amazing. Every now and then I see that hoodie for sale online. I'm like, I could be this.
I really want one. I really want one.
There is supposed to be a really wonderful like oral history of what it was like in the editorial offices during that,
Really?
and I can't remember what it's called.
Well, the
People have
problem is
sent it to me, and
it
I
was
haven't read
selling
it yet.
books, so they just kept.
Oh, look at that.
Yes,
He's so extreme.
he's amazing.
90s extreme.
He's
Like he's extreme without the E.
He's so extreme.
X-treme.
He's so
Yeah, he
extreme.
is.
He doesn't even need sleeves. He's
doesn't.
taking the sleeves
And
off.
he took the sleeves off the hoodie,
He didn't
and
even-
it's like
he
and it's
ripped
like a
them off.
half. It's almost you know what I mean.
a belly shirt.
It's a midriff because it was never covered. Actually, like his sweatshirt never reached his belt ever in any shot of him I ever saw. And I think partially that's one of my things is my love of Mark Bagley's art.
Oh no, it's. I mean, like
So
that's
because you
the
know
best.
he was on New Warriors and then went to but yeah I love Ben Reilly but I was not like this whole Ben Reilly thing they're doing now. I'm like,
I haven't read it. I don't know. I haven't read it.
okay.
I'm not.
Same.
boy, did I just really okay. Well,
You are
that's-
with some people in chat on this where they're like, oh, interesting. I'm not caught up on my Spidey books. I just jumped into Amazing Spider-Man for that Hannah Blumenreich 6-pager in issue 25, which was amazing.
So yeah, Spidey stuff going on now.
Well, and the Clone Saga and the Ultimate books was really and this was all called the Clone Saga, and this was
Right.
like
Yeah.
big too many Spider-Men.
just-
The Ultimate books version where that's how they created Spider-Woman in the Ultimate
Yeah.
books was really
That was
cool.
interesting.
I thought that was really fun.
It was interesting, but it didn't.
It wasn't the same.
Yeah, well, it not only wasn't the same, but it just
wasn't
kind of, I don't know. It just like I said, great idea. I'm constantly disturbed by the execution of these wonderful ideas, and maybe it's because I'm like, oh, this is a great idea. If you did this, it would be awesome, and I kind of get my head set on that happening, and I don't know why I do that because it's never going to happen.
Right
and then
brain.
it doesn't happen, and I'm like,
I
What
call
do
it
you
I
think
call
of
it
the
right
actual,
brain.
like the death of Spider-Man in the Ultimate line of comics was itself
Was
an
good.
event. It
It
had
was
some
good.
tie-ins.
Yeah.
It had
it
some
was
one-shots
good.
that went with it.
I dug it. I think they did a good job.
I liked it. It had like 3 different endings, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Where like they kept it was like Lord of the Rings, where you're like, oh, is this is the credits? Nope, not yet.
No, we're
Nope,
not.
no,
No,
we're not.
not-
Which was like the most
it's
the
not
most
the same.
Spider-Man way to go. Is like
Yes.
literally he's just like swinging through the city, slowly getting more and more beat up as he keeps terrible things from happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I gotta save Captain America. Oh, okay. Oh, I got shot 6. Nope, gotta
that
go
is
fight
so
Green Goblin.
Spider-Man,
It's so
too.
Spider-Man.
yeah,
It's like,
100%
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. If Spider-Man's going to go out, that's how Spider-Man's going to go out.
He's gonna go out from doing 10 things.
And that was kind of an event book, wasn't it?
It
I mean,
essentially was. They
it's a
wrote
crossover.
Death of Spider-Man on all the things. They had
Yeah.
tie-in issues. There was Ultimate Fallout, which was a tie-in one.
Oh,
There were
yeah.
the corresponding issues of the Ultimates book at the time. So it had like maybe 10 different books total that like
And
tied
it
in
was
with
some of
that.
and it has
some of the
so
Ultimate
much good stuff.
Some of the Ultimate characters were done like just really. I was like, oh, that's awesome. And some of them I was just like,
Oh yeah, they weren't all winners.
There was some like dumb reinvention and some
Mm-hmm.
cool reinvention. I guess that's gonna happen anytime you give people a lot of license. But like
Yeah.
interestingly, the version of the Avengers in the Ultimate Universe
Right.
is called
The
the Ultimates.
Ultimates.
And it was written very famously by Mark Miller.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, I'm gonna say, divisive.
It's
But like, what's interesting is it's this sort of edgy version of things, but it also the
Very
redesigns
modern, yeah.
from that run were a huge part of like the Avengers designs we have in the movies.
Right.
So even people who hated that run are kind of like, well, okay, we got some good
no,
stuff.
and it
Got
and
some good
the X-Men,
redesigns.
the
yeah.
X-Men
Some
stuff
people
was kind of
loved it.
interesting.
it's yeah.
It started out interesting.
Well, the
and then they were like,
X-Men, and then it fell apart, and then it got interesting again.
Yeah.
At
The
the
thing
end,
that
it got really interesting.
The thing that I really liked about the X-Men in the Ultimate Universe is that it turns out they were like subjects of government experience.
Yeah,
Like,
they weren't
I thought
actually.
that was
They
kind of
weren't.
cool, right?
Well, that's
Like,
it was like
I
very
wrong?
cool and
No,
not.
it's-
Yeah, it was very cool and not cool at the same time.
yeah.
You know, it was like very cool that they did such a different thing with the X-Men, but not cool that they weren't the evolution because it completely restructures the
Yeah, like,
fabric
I
of
feel
who
the
they
same
are.
way. Where I was
and
like, I remember reading
I
and
was like,
going,
oh, cool. Yeah.
okay.
Well, the thing I liked about it is they didn't do it in the real universe, which all bets are off.
If they'd done that in 616,
Oh,
I
I
would have
would've
hated
been-
it.
Oh,
But,
616.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You could give it a little creative license. In
Yeah.
some
Oh,
ways,
numbers.
Numbers.
Okay,
616 is a
Oh.
technical term. Wow. 616 is a technical term for when you're talking about Marvel books. The 616 is the number designation for the actual Marvel Comics continuity.
It may or may not still be the case. They're contradicting themselves.
It's
Oh yeah,
Don't
because
worry
of
about
now
it.
with after Secret War.
And, like post Secret War and Infinity, like I think it was 1610 was the Ultimate Universe.
1610 and 616
616
merged.
merged.
They,
But then there's 65, which is
which is
man.
Spider-Gwen.
Spider-Gwen.
So the idea with
So
one
there are
of the
still
more
multiple
recent
Earths.
stories
Okay.
was to pull a Crisis on Infinite Earths and destroy the other ones, except that they realized that like if they did that, they would wreck some good stuff they had going. So they just merged a couple of them together. But we're still kind of calling the main Marvel Universe 616.
616.
It snuck in a couple
How
of
do you
places.
feel about the Spider-Verse?
I wanted to hate it. I wanted to hate it
I
so
was the
badly.
same. I was
And
the
then the
same.
giant robot showed up, and then the
Oh my
cartoon
God,
version
yeah.
showed up,
The
and then
Japanese
the,
I skipped
Spider-Man.
it,
the
but
Spider-Man
loved
with
it.
the Peter Porker, the spectacular
Yeah.
Spider-Ham shows up, and I'm like, I love you.
It was.
Yeah.
I love you
It was
so much.
madness in all the best ways.
It really was, dude.
Oh wow!
yeah.
There's
Now-
a crossover.
Spider
Yeah.
Spider-Verse was a great crossover.
I did,
This
I
was
did dig
lots
Spider-Verse.
of versions of Spider characters from everywhere, and one of the interesting here's one of those like unintended
was Dan
consequences
Slott, right?
of it was Dan Slott. One of those like unintended consequences things. They were getting ready for this book that was going to be a million different versions of Spider characters, and they were like, let's use every version we can think of from any media ever, and also let's make up some new ones because what's the fun of a story like this if you don't make up some new ones?
Yeah.
So here's what they did. They said, we're going to do a 5-part series, each of which is a standalone issue introducing some
Yes.
new version of a Spider character.
That's amazing.
We will call it Edge of Spider-Verse to tell
Yes.
people that it's like leading in to this big story.
But it's his own line.
But yeah, it's just like, and it's 1 through 5, but they're not like, they don't follow on each other. It's just, here's this one, here's
Single
this one,
issue.
here's this one. One of them was by Gerard Way, doing
that's-
like a weird hacksaw
right,
Spider-Man
yeah.
character. And so each of these was sort of this like, this is a character who'll maybe show up once or twice. We'll use him in the background of the big event, and maybe nobody will ever think about it
They
again.
brought
Or
back in the
maybe-
Indian Spider-Man, Peter.
Yeah.
Peter
Parker.
Parker.
Who is now in? Well, I think the Spider-Verse book ended, but he was a regular in the Spider. He was like one of the normal Peter Parker,
Yeah.
the most normal Peter Parker in the Spider-Verse book.
And I'm being like dumb mysterious about this because it's funny
There's
now.
so much.
Because in the second issue of that, like we're just gonna throw things at the wall and
Just
create new
screwing
Spider
with it.
characters.
This is fun.
They had a super nutty idea, and they were like, "What about a universe where Gwen Stacy became the Spider?"
Yeah.
Yes.
Right there.
And this,
God, that
So-
costume.
in case
That's
you wonder
the
why it's so
costume.
confusing, she became a massive thing immediately
Massive.
because one of the best costume designs of all time,
Yeah. Oh,
and just
easily.
a really
I just
wonderful
love how like Spider-Man, but not Spider-Man it is.
It's Jason Latour and last name Rodriguez for the artist, but I'm blanking on the first name.
Good on you.
Uh,
Good on you for remembering that much. I'm like,
trying,
yeah, those
like-
people that were really good.
and they had a really cool take on her. It was just supposed to be like this standalone issue, and then she'd show up in the background of stuff. But people flipped out over it.
It's
I remember
great.
flipping out over it. I
Me
remember
too.
going, "Oh my God, is this a regular? Is this
And, like,
gonna be the? Is this why Spider-Verse exists?
Her-
Just for her? Like
her-
this is awesome."
And her day job
What
is
was
she's
that?
a drummer
What was
in
that?
a
Robbie Rodriguez.
Thank
Rodriguez.
you.
Rodriguez.
Rodriguez. Thank you. Thank you, editorial. She's a drummer in a band and like.
She
and,
plays
like-
in a band.
Oh, yeah,
They're
which
the
is
Mary
which
Janes.
is the Mary Janes. Yes,
Mary
yes.
It's so good.
By the way, if you own the original vinyl pressing of the fantastic Texas garage band who recorded like Face It Tiger, You Just Hit the Jackpot, which is the Mary Jane song, when they were releasing, this is way...
Oh no, go for it. I know where you're going.
If
Go.
you
go,
haven't,
go,
send it.
go.
Send it to me. Don't really send it because it's worth hundreds of dollars.
Send it to me.
but,
I have a
like,
real record. I have an Agents of Shield record, but it's okay.
So this was one of those like from weird beginnings you grow to great things. When Spider-Gwen was getting her own book, she was so popular in the background of this event, and this take on her was so loved and successful, like right out the gate. Even though I feel like I can go on record as saying all of us thought it was a terrible idea to have like like you can't bring Gwen Stacy back from the bed
Yep.
dead.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is
yeah,
dumb.
you can't-
This is
yeah.
like
Like-
weird.
Don't do it.
Like
Don't.
so
But
many-
but that was not bringing Gwen Stacy
But
back
yeah,
from the dead.
they did
That's
it.
why it worked
They
because it's
were
like
like-
this isn't Gwen Stacy back from the dead. This is a universe where Gwen Stacy didn't die,
And
and,
they're-
instead
and
Peter
Peter
Parker died,
did.
and
And
he's
it was amazing.
Yeah,
She
it was
went
they
back
run
out
into
and
each
she
other.
went and
There
just
we go, there we
whacked.
go.
Yeah. So there was an amazing like Texas garage band, girl band, like that recorded a version of this song, and they loved it, and they actually did this super limited vinyl pressing of the Mary Jane's
Is that available
record.
anywhere?
I think
find
it's
it.
available
Even just
if you
hearing
have
it, can you hear it
$1 jillion
anywhere?
dollars.
You can
hear
hear
it
it.
in
No,
the song.
to hear it. I
Yeah,
want
you
to
can
hear the song. I'm not gonna hear it.
Something about
yeah.
sea monsters is the name of the band. But
Sigmund
if you
and the Sea
look up,
Monsters? I'm just kidding.
No,
anybody
no.
in chat have me on this?
I'm just saying, we have social media. You should link us.
I've been meaning to make a Wednesday Club a
Song
Spotify
play-
list.
Nice.
So if I'll find
Yeah.
because there's a bunch of songs. I was just listening to the Ramones cover of the Spider-Man theme this morning. So
But my the other thing I love about this is whether or not Spider-Gwen works for you. What I love about watching that sort of thing over the last couple of years, in addition to just watching people fall in love with something, will never get old. Like, and
No.
it's been really delightful. But like. That's how you get weird things where people are like, I really like Spider-Gwen. Where did she come from? And I say some nonsense words like Edge of Spider-Verse #2, and you're like, what? That makes no
No
sense.
sense.
But that's
It-
an- but that's
but,
an-
like,
but
this
that's
is
the
where
win of an
how
event.
these things, yeah,
That's
this is
the win of an event. Yeah.
the possibilities of like the richness that can come out of this stuff.
and you hear that they're doing that, you're like, oh God, no, really? And those are the things that kind of end up winning me over. So often I'll like,
Yeah.
I've gotten to the point where like I can
We
tell.
used to call it the Brubaker theorem because bringing Bucky back was the worst idea ever to happen, except it turns out Winter Soldier
turned
was
out that was
amazing.
the
So
regular
the
plot
theorem was
time.
there's no idea so dumb it can't turn out amazing if
she's
you
still
just
in this, or
like
is she gone?
execute it perfectly.
It's in how it's
Boy,
done.
that is the
If
comic
you-
book epitaph.
Once again, execution. It's all in the execution.
If
Any
you tell the
idea-
story well,
It doesn't matter
Doesn't
what
matter.
the idea is. You
Married
can,
with Sea Monsters.
Married
That
with
is the
Sea
name of the
Monsters.
band.
Nice.
Okay, cool. We'll be looking you up, Mary.
At some point, I'll tweet out a Spotify playlist for people.
Yeah.
Awesome.
all right.
See if I
So,
find it.
do we want to even try to get into Secret Wars, or do we want to spend the last
Wait,
15
Secret
minutes?
Wars, the one that just happened?
The Hickman one,
Okay,
or do
or
we
do you
want to
wanna
spend
Listen
50?
to a little bit of Face It Tiger.
Yes.
Yes.
Wait,
Do
wait,
we-
can,
is
we,
there- are
we
we
don't know
gonna
that
get
there might
muted?
be a legal issue with that. So
Well,
that's why
actually we'll just get muted. We can play a.
No,
piece
we can
for
listen to
the-
it after. We can listen to it after.
We'll do it after. We'll do it
Listen
after.
Put a
They
link
can,
in the chat.
they can Google.
Put a link in the
Please
chat.
Put a link in the chat.
Yeah.
We'll be a link in the chat.
Put a link.
And
that
if you want to
sends-
tweet that out and put us, notify us.
and put make sure it's a link that actually goes to the band.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
A good link.
So, you want to
So
talk
do
about
we wanna
Civil War or?
Or do we want to spend 15 minutes with the chat and just talking, and then set up our episode for next week?
Oh God, someone's asking about Onslaught.
Oh,
And
God.
Heroes Reborn. Sometimes it goes bad, y'all.
Ooh, heroes are
They can't all like. I
But
was,
we got Thunderbolts out of that.
we did, and I
got
will.
Thunderbolts out of that.
I will say that the joy of comic books, and especially these days because they're now owned by these mass media conglomerates, and this is a thing that like people see the numbers often and they talk about the books that are doing well and doing bad. Thankfully, because these are basically our world pop culture now revolves around comic books, which is such a weird thing to say in my 40s. It doesn't matter what the books do anymore because there's a vested interest in new, fresh ideas, and so they are willing to try an awful lot of stuff. And
I like that you said awful lot because a lot of things they won't try.
well, no, but like they're eventually going to get into like
God bless
it's
Donna
getting
Amanat.
it's getting easier and easier to just at least for a minute get weird just because they're kind of people are curious to see if it sits, and that means that there's a
We
lot of
hope
failure.
that this is going to be the ultimate sort of result. And there's
Yeah,
a
it's
lot
still-
of reason to hope that is what is happening, like behind the scenes.
You know
is
my
that-
biggest complaint
Yeah.
about Ms. Marvel, speaking of which?
Yeah.
She doesn't have cosmic energy powers. Every single other Marvel character has cosmic energy powers.
There's a new
She's
character
the
named Ms.
only
Marvel
one.
who's inherited a legacy name, but her powers are a stark departure from that
Yeah,
roster.
I'm like, I would have been a lot happier had she had.
Maybe she has them. She just hasn't found them yet.
No, she's
she's
big.
awful.
I know. I'm
But you know,
throwing- I'm
but
throwing
that's
hope out
like
there
that's
for
like
you.
my only complaint about the character. I was like, oh, cool, we're gonna have a new character. I was like a cosmically powered, a Muslim woman. This is gonna be. What is she doing at the Embiggen? What is that? That's not. Okay, I'll still read it.
Still good.
But every once in a while,
Still like it.
but every once in a while, I'm like, But she can't.
You just want to see her fire a laser
I
ball.
do want to see some out of
The line of characters that she comes from,
all of them.
All fire.
I'm like,
razor
why did
blade.
we? You know, is there some other size changing characters?
Okay, I can. Know what would make you happy?
So that's what's interesting. Like, this is an example of a legacy character,
Right,
which is someone who
that-
takes
that-
a name or something like that. And in this case, she just named herself after her hero.
Right, which is
She's a total fangirl.
Yeah.
right, which is awesome.
But sometimes you have the similarities where, like, Barry Allen named himself Flash because his powers reminded him of the comic book character Flash.
Yes.
And then you have other characters like the Young Avengers, where they intentionally model both the powers and personalities on alternate versions of previous Avengers.
Yes.
I have a fix for
Who's the new patron? Go ahead.
Miss Marvel, by the way. She's got that beautiful one gold bracelet. At some point, you know that it could either replace
Like a
or
quantum band?
double.
Quantum
Give her a quasar quantum band. She can get a quantum band. She go to space.
And then when she
She doesn't
smashes
need a
them
quantum
together,
band.
she switches
She
places.
doesn't need a quantum man. She
with
has
Rick
rating
Jones.
power. That's the thing. Like, she works. She works 100%.
She works great.
It's just this little tick in the back
I'll
of my
tell
throat
you,
that says you
we-
should
we-
have
we-
it.
And
Yeah.
this is how you get to
Three-issue
stories
series.
like when
Three-issue
they
series where
hire
she has
Damian
Quantum
to
Man.
write a Ms. Marvel thing, and he writes like a weird alternate thing where she goes to space and gets space powers.
wouldn't do that.
This is where it comes from.
I wouldn't do that.
I'd do it for a 3-issue
Could you
miniseries.
figure out a way to do it though?
Of course, I can think of 15 different ways to do
Right?
it. I just
Right?
wouldn't do
We
it
just
because
did.
that's
We just did.
We just
yeah,
did.
Give her quantum man.
Quantum man.
Bam.
Problem solved. Boom.
Or hey, secondary genesis.
Yeah.
Secondary genesis
That
is a thing.
exists. That exists.
I'll also say it's interesting that she's got the lightning bolt and not the star. And I often think of the star as kind of being more about the bolt and the bolt more
But
about
she
something
named
more internal.
herself as after Ms. Marvel, Carol Danvers,
When
she
was a
yeah.
fan.
which
Right.
famously
She
wore the
wrote fan
lightning bolt.
fiction.
We were supposed to get back into
Right.
tangent.
New
So
thing.
Wednesday Club, that's what we do.
That's what it is.
Let's. How about we do this? We'll do an episode on Secret Wars.
Oh,
one day.
yeah.
Like
That's
we'll
a
just give
whole
it a
episode.
whole episode
That's a
because
whole
Hickman
episode.
does like.
I
Hickman's
want you to
doing
call
Hickman.
me. And I
know
don't
what
want you to call me
Yeah,
about
like
that.
because I liked Secret Wars. It became
I
very
did
too.
disruptive
I
as a
really
reading
liked
experience,
Secret
and it
Wars.
suffered from the inability of anything to end on time. This is a huge.
Huge
Huge
issue. But see,
problem right
here's what that's where I get difficulty separating the story from the execution.
Yeah.
And in this part, an execution, I'm talking about just the delivery of the product.
It's such a good reread after the fact.
Yeah,
Right,
a
I'm
lot
sure.
of these books
I
are
should
starting
actually
to
go
work
back
Wish
better.
I had time to do
in
that.
fact.
But
Yeah.
it's I loved how well he distilled all the aspects of the original Secret War into this new
Weird,
Secret
interesting
War, God
take.
Doom, and all this. I'm like, oh, this is all very
God
fun.
Doom, and he's got like
Tree.
molecules.
Yeah, and I'm
and
like,
he's
this
got,
is all good,
Sheriff
interesting,
Strange,
but
like, yeah.
then it took too long.
Yeah.
They added an issue unannounced, like in midway through the run. They realized they were going to do 9 issues instead of 8, and by the time it finished, it was about 3 months,
Like 3 or 4 months.
two
behind.
or 3 months late, and the entire consequences of the event
Had
had
already
played
happened,
out in other
and you don't know
books
what- so
before
the-
you got to the end.
So that really
yeah.
sours me towards things like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's a
You know?
functional difference between the readers who are reading in graphic novel form and the readers who are reading weekly.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's such
Yeah.
an interesting thing because it creates a completely different experience.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, 100%.
Which is so. There we are. Oh,
Yeah.
what a beautiful
Hey,
mess.
Zach, can you show the map for Battle World? I just want to see that real quick.
You want to see the
Yes!
Battle
Battle
World?
Map,
Yeah, I love the Battle
Oh,
World.
the
map.
Battle
Thank
World
you,
map.
Zach.
But it was so as an event, as it stands as an event, I enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah.
As it stands with its rollout and its ramifications.
Yeah.
So as a
Not
reading
as-
experience, you have really mixed feelings. As
No, as a reading
book
experience.
Itself, oh, okay.
As a reading experience, it's great. But then when I got to the point where, like you said, 3 months later, and everything that happened afterwards has already happened, and I'm looking at things and I'm going, then it starts to lose me. That's the problem. Like the rollout on these things is so important to the weekly reader, and it makes you feel a little left out or a little left back when they're like, well, it's gonna be graphic novel, and graphic novel people love it. Then you're like, hey, I've been here. I'm picking up these books every week. So I'm in this shop so you got to get that kind
These
of.
are literally his books from this week.
Like,
These
he
are
bought them
Wednesday's
today.
new releases.
This
Bought them
week
today.
I just got these books. So and that makes you feel. It just sours your enjoyment.
Well, it's
of,
I will admit that's why I've stopped doing my weekly pull is no longer about what's new. It's about where I'm always like a month behind, and on a weird level, like I actually do specifically put things in slightly in the correct order. I kind of got a filtration.
my
system.
favorite thing, honestly, is
look
when,
at that.
Yeah, Battle World map.
Again, like this is so Hickman.
And I feel like there were a few missed opportunities in Secret Wars that get into some other stuff that I don't
Sure.
I had such like as a
We'll go over
as a
that.
read and Doom story, it was perfect. Taken from some other characters' perspectives, it totally falls apart. Susan.
Of course,
And
yeah.
it's really interesting because it's one of my favorite stories, but also I've got some issues.
Yeah. Oh well, like anything, and it's yeah. Oh yeah.
And then what was
so much good.
Weird World.
You know what's funny? Like every once in a while, I'll miss an issue for whatever reason. I'll have to go back. But what I do is I will put that book aside. And I won't read any of those
I've done
books
that too.
until
So it's resolved.
Two amazing things that happen. One is when you get the book and you read the series and you're like, oh, wow, that was great. I'm so glad I did it. The other one, my personal favorite, is when you get the book and then you read through and you're like, this is not anything I would have kept collecting past this issue. But I grabbed all these issues because I was missing that book.
As a retailer, it hurts me to hear that because people
happens.
accidentally ending up with like 8 issues of a book they're not enjoying is
Right.
how people burn out on comics. And
Yeah.
we're like, no, just drop it. Please,
Don't worry about it.
if you're not feeling it, just drop the book.
Bring it
I
back.
promise.
We'll give you your money.
I'm not going to burn out on comics. It's just not going to happen.
Too late.
Some
Oh,
folks
that
are just
particular
saying,
one?
It is my addiction. That's my only.
The title.
Yeah,
sure.
that's my vice. But yeah, that title, and then yeah.
All right, we need to start wrapping up. Do we have any
I
questions?
think maybe
like
our
burning
question
questions that we need to
interface
ask?
didn't work today because they
question
never
interface
started
didn't-
popping
didn't-
up.
didn't
I'm very
work.
sorry. I was trying to catch ones.
Yeah,
And
our normal,
I
our
was
normal
looking on
system
Twitter and
kind
didn't
of.
see any questions there.
Well,
Just
we
a
do.
lot of people saying that they're picking up comics from us.
Yeah,
which
we
is
had a
always
little bit of a
nice.
technical flub today, which will happen.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
yes,
alright.
hey, we do have the social medias.
Yeah, hit us up. Hit
You
us
can
up.
hit us up and add our.
All right, should we announce next week's episode that you are kindly taking?
Yes. So I'm very excited for next week.
Oh, boy.
I haven't quite figured out how we're gonna do it, but after 2 weeks of intensely deep diving into like the complexities of comics, especially mainstream American superhero company comics, we want to reel it way back. And next week is our overview, our 101. So it's very, like, if you've got questions that you want us to get to, we won't get to everything. But next week, I want the absolute, if you are coming to this cold, if you are like, what's a comic? What do I do with my eyes? Which things count as comics? Because that's a real question we've had. It's like literally how to read a comic.
I won't be here for this.
No, but you have to come back. You signed the contract saying you'd be back next week. Remember?
No.
Retcon, yes,
I don't see.
Retcon, you do.
Nick Fury
This
phases
isn't
out.
me.
we mind wiped you after that.
Crazy.
We would never do that. But yeah, so next week is going to be our, like, if you are brand new or have a question you've always wanted to know, we are going to try to do, like, as a reaction in part to our 2 weeks of me
Of
not
deep
even
dive.
trying to hold the line
No.
on, like, our explanations. What is comics? Welcome to comics. Start here.
Comics 101. Is there a book that you think that we should read that's a good primer?
I recommend this at all times for everything. But Scott McCloud wrote a book called Understanding Comics. And it's funny because it's...
I missed out on saying the name. Everyone
We
else
can do it
said
again.
were there,
Scott
Paul. Where were
McCloud
you?
wrote a book called
Understanding Comics.
And it is basically universally agreed upon as like a fantastic introduction. It's great if you want to learn to write them and other stuff, which we might get to later. It's great for that, but it also, there's no one I know who didn't like get
Jim does a
something
show
out of reading
on
that
Alpha
book.
about writing comics.
We're hoping to talk to him, but we don't want to announce it till we know we're getting him.
Shh, you didn't hear that, audience.
Retcon.
I'm mind wiping you.
Bucky is Winter Soldier.
Or is it? Which one? How are we going here? Minute
Hold
by
on,
minute?
I see time.
We're hoping to get a visitor.
There we
who would be
go.
particularly
Are you gonna
useful
punch?
on
You
this.
gonna punch
Thank
the
you,
timeline?
Superboy.
Superboy this.
Yeah. So there's a book called Understanding Comics, which sort of breaks down like comics as an art form and is told in the form of a comic book. It is a like an instructional work that is told in the form of a comic. It is a ton of people. You can read it blind, basically, but it'll make you look at comics in a whole different way. So we won't get as much into crazy theory as that, but I do recommend it. Like,
Is there
To
It's
everyone
required.
at all
It's
times.
suggested reading for next week's.
yeah.
is there a good comic book that we could read? Like, or just any? Is there like a very basic I hate to
This
say
is a good
Watchmen, but like
question.
Watchmen has like a very basic layout.
That's a little too
Well,
advanced.
Like,
It's
that's
pretty
the
advanced in
non-panel
terms of its
grid.
narrative.
Well,
but
also there's things happening in. I mean, like Watchmen.
Watchmen's a
There's so much
commentary
subtext.
on.
Yeah.
There's
about
Sure.
it's too meta. Watchmen's
Way
too
too
meta
meta.
for a basic build.
So would we
I
say
might
like
try
some of
to
the
pick,
older
like-
comics, or
I'm gonna look at what's on sale on Comixology, and I might try to pick like a couple of 99-cent issues like maybe 2 or 3, like something old.
There's got to be a
something
graphic
new.
novel, a basic graphic novel out there.
Well, we'll find a couple. We'll each pick something.
We'll all
interesting.
think about it, and
Because we
yeah.
can compare and contrast like different styles, and this is going to be like we won't get time to do justice to anything, but I want to make sure that when we do this next week, we also expand to be like, here are comics. It's much bigger than just American mainstream superhero comics.
It really is.
Here's some different ways it can look.
There's a lot of good stuff coming out of France that I barely am able to get a hold of.
I need to read more European comics
There's
because
so
there's so
much
good
good.
stuff.
There's so much so good.
Not just French.
And also,
There's a movie
I'll
called
maybe
Valerian coming
I'll
out that's
maybe
based on
pull
some very famous
some
graphic novels, which are
manga.
finally coming back into print in America.
Bam.
And the rumor is that like they may have actually influenced Star Wars in some way.
The Valerians?
Yep.
Does the timing work?
Yep.
Fantastic. They probably did.
Star Wars has
he was
a
a nerd.
lot of influences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough.
It's a safe bet that dude was reading whatever interesting sci-fi there was to be influenced by.
And was like, ooh.
I'm gonna pull some manga too. I'll pull a manga. I'll pull a manga for next week. I'll find a single issue manga to read.
We're getting some like.
Some interesting thoughts.
Did they talk about Scooby-Doo team-ups? Says Archimedes. I'm gonna shout out to weird crossovers.
Team up. Yeah.
Scooby-Doo. Well, also, I want to say there's another. I read a crossover specifically for the show that we didn't end up getting into, but it's okay because I want to talk about it later anyway. I read Archie Meets the Ramones.
Oh.
How was it?
It was great. I'm not even gonna I'm gonna just go to the.
Go with that cover. I love that cover.
Oh well, it's
I
just
messed it up.
it's the alternate covers.
Oh,
so I was
sorry.
just gonna flip to the front again.
A suggested title for this episode from Rick Budd, whom those of you who watch Bass knows, he wanted to call it The Crossing, which is the name, of course, of the story where Usagi Yojimbo meets the Ninja Turtles. Because crossovers let you do all kinds of wacky stuff.
Wackies.
So,
All right, so we now have to wrap it up, unfortunately. Join us next week on Geek and Sundry's Twitch, where we will be
Please come
talking
back
about
sometime.
our...
This was
I
so
will be
much
back.
fun.
I will be back.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yes, thank you for coming in.
you for having
I've been
me.
trying to get you on my Marvel show for a year now.
We'll get back on there.
No, I know. But it was so funny. I texted you on Monday night. I was like, hey, man, we got a show on Wednesday. Can you do it? And he was like, yeah, totally free. I was like, what?
Yeah, I get
You
crazy.
haven't been free for a year.
Yeah, I know.
We'll give you more notice next
Well,
time.
since
we
I'm
wanna
already going
have
to be
you
here for a
on.
real quick shout out to Foreververse in an
Yeah.
hour
Yes.
on this very stage.
Speaking
I
of
can just come
alternate
in a little
universes and what ifs.
Yeah, there's a lot of alternate
lot of
universes and what ifs
crossover.
and crossoverings in Foreververse. It's a good
Uh,
time.
Secret
Right now we're
Wars,
puppets.
Battle World
We're
map,
puppets
Puppet
right now.
Land.
We're in Puppet Land right now.
Yeah.
So
Somebody make the Secret Wars-esque Battle World map of every place the Foreververse people have been.
socials and plugs.
Oh, okay. So Foreververse, socials, everything Damien Poitier. Ask your black geek friend is floating around in the
Coming.
Yes,
I missed it during the
something
anniversary stream. It sounded amazing.
Something should be happening with that at some point. Yeah, everything Damien Poitier, and that's everything I can never talk about the stuff I'm doing.
I know it's hateful, isn't it?
They're like, oh no, don't.
Talk about that.
So what you guys need to do is follow me everywhere, so that I'm big enough that they're like, that's actually a benefit to have him talk about it.
Yeah. So follow Damien Poitier.
Right, that way I'm big enough, and they're
Don't
like, well, no,
literally
you do.
follow him everywhere.
Yeah, no,
but
I meant on the social-
locate
on the
him
social
on
medias.
the social medias.
Yes, on them internets is where I need to
On
follow
damn
us.
internets.
On them internets.
I'm Amy Dallen. You can find me at Amy or here talking about comic books and playing a lot of games, which is lovely.
I'm Taliesin Jaffe. I'm executive goth anywhere that matters, and you can see me play D&D on Thursdays, and on Friday, Emma and I are playing the Doctor Who. It's going to be great.
Oh, nice.
Great. So I'll see you on Friday. Come check out. Yes, Professor Cronotis is really fun, and come check out the Doctor Who RPG. It's super fun on Eric's TBD RPG Friday morning.
Fridays noon to 3.
And see me really hungover from Critical Role the night before. It's great.
Nice.
You hit it well.
I'm on Marvel Movie News on Tuesdays over Popcorn Talk Network. Then I'm on Screen Junkies. I write for them in the mornings, and I appear on their shows on Thursdays and Fridays. And here, and at the Matt Key is the social media where it matters. So anyway, we've been the Wednesday Club. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
We will see you
you.
next week.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.